Alright, and we are live, folks. And for you guys that were watching the previous live, I had to restart because my audio was off. I fixed the issue, my apologies. But we are live now, so make sure to hit the like button if you just came in and watching the recording, watching it live. Hit the sub button if you're new. And thank you to all who asked pre-live stream questions. I can get more in-depth and give you more in-depth analysis. So if you want your questions answered in the future, make sure to ask them ahead of time. Or super chat here and I'll get more in-depth anyway. So thank you to all for that. But let me let the people know once again that we're live. I had to update them because I had to restart the live due to technical difficulties. Give me a second here, folks, and we shall begin. Give me 1 second. All right, letting the people know now. So let's begin. All right, so there's some interesting questions here that were asked as far as anime power scaling is concerned. So the first question was Sakano Hatake versus Might Dai, which is a very interesting matchup. We have to really look at all angles here to kind of give a good assessment of who would most likely win. So due to the lack of feats, the best way to assess this matchup is to look at the lore of both characters and any possible feats that we can extrapolate. So first, Sakano Hatake was stated to be such a capable shinobi that even the legendary Sannin pale in comparison to him, right? So that's an important distinction. This allows us to safely extrapolate and deduce that Sakano is significantly superior to the legendary Sannin, right? So that's an important distinction, like I said. We have to keep that in mind as we continue the assessment. Now, Might Dai in base was considered a Genin level shinobi. So if we're talking base to base, this isn't even a discussion, right? So the only interesting discussion to be had would obviously be 8 Gates Might Dai versus Sakano Hatake. That's the only interesting and fruitful discussion because base to base, it's not even debatable. All right, so breaking down 8 Gates Might Dai, he was capable of warding off the 7 legendary swordsmen of the mist and was successful in killing 4 of them, right? So keep that in mind. So what's difficult about the seven legendary swordsmen of the mist as far as scaling is concerned is the obvious ambiguity as far as how strong each one is, excluding Kisame and Zabuza, right? Those guys were the most explored. Everybody else is super ambiguous. So for the sake of this discussion, let's presuppose that Kisame and Zabuza are the 2 strongest swordsmen of all time, which seems to be narratively implied anyway. I think most of you would agree with that. So continuing on, this is an important presupposition to establish because Zabuza, right, struggled with Part 1 Kakashi. We can all agree with that. They were relative. They were competing, and it was neck and neck, right? We can agree with that. So the point is that they're relative, and they're near an equal level. So that means Might Dai wasn't able to solo 7 individuals weaker than Part 1 Kakashi. So put that into perspective. Zabuza struggled with Part 1 Kakashi, who is considered a top 2 swordsman of all time, while Might Dai couldn't even solo 7 people weaker than Zabuza and Part 1 Kakashi. That's another important note to be had, right? So continuing on. Kisame scales to Killer Bee, right? So we can all agree Kisame is above Zabuza, right? He's probably the strongest swordsman ever. He has the most impressive feats, empirically speaking. He scales to Killer Bee. Obviously, he was able to dominate him. So he scales to Killer Bee, who scales to the 4th Raikage. People always agree with the notion that they're relative, right? Give or take. Some people think Killer Bee is stronger. Some people think the Raikage is stronger. The point is that they're relative. I think the majority of us can agree with that. And the 4th Raikage can be scaled around Sannin level as evident by the similar success him and Tsunade had against Edo Madara. So they had similar feats, similar success rates to Edo Madara. They were both fodder in comparison to him at a relative level. So that's the point here. So hence, to put all these pieces together, right? So the reason I noted all these things is 8 Gates Might Dai is greatly inferior to Sannin level, who pale in comparison to Sakano Hatake. So in conclusion, it's only rational to deduce that Sakano Hatake would most likely win this matchup with the empirical evidence that is presented to us, the lore that's been established around Sakano Hatake's character, and all the pieces point to Sakano Hatake most likely winning. Alright, so That would be my assessment of that matchup. Now, some people, and I spoke about this on my last live stream, they misconstrue what 8 gates exactly is, right? They all think that when we think of 8 gates, we think of Might Guy. And the problem with that is that that's a false dichotomy. All 8 gates aren't created equal. Might Guy failed to kill 7 legendary swordsmen in the mist. Might Guy nearly killed Deidara, who's exponentially times greater than anyone else we're speaking about here right now. So the 8 gates clearly aren't created equal. You have to keep that in mind when assessing 8 gates Might Die. That's an important thing to note. Hey, what's going on, Luis? Thanks for coming in. What's going on, Hool? Thanks for coming in, folks. Make sure to hit the like button and the sub button if you're new. Any super chats will be answered immediately, and obviously pre-live questions are answered first as well. All right, so continuing on. Like I said, Might Die more than likely loses to Sakano badly. It wouldn't even be competitive, even in 8 gates. So, all right, continuing on to the next question, and folks, feel free to ask questions as well. What's your take on Yamamoto versus Ichibei? I'm not knowledgeable in just enough in Bleach quite yet to give my take on that. If you ask me early Bleach questions, I could probably answer them up until like beginning of the Espada arc, because I'm not done with it yet, so I'm still watching. On that topic, do you think Jubi Madara could use all 8 gates and live? That's a question that has a lot of ambiguity revolved around it, because I see what you mean, right? He technically has immortality, and from that you can make some kind of rational induction and say, well, because he's immortal, wouldn't his body just continue to heal while the 8 gates eats at it? That's a good argument, but we just don't know. I would argue most likely, though. That the 8 gates probably would be able to. He probably would be able to use it for a long period of time. So I would argue that, but I think there's arguments for both sides. So, all right. So the next question someone asked, which I thought was interesting as well, was Kid Kakashi versus Chunin Exams Rock Lee. Excuse me. So there's 2 sides to this argument. There's 2 sides. Here's the argument for Rock Lee first. All right. So Adult Kakashi was thoroughly impressed with Rock Lee opening the gates. Right, and Kid Kakashi, and as we know, as a kid, he was already a Jonin plus level threat. He was a Jonin at age 12. Rock Lee, obviously, was in the Chunin exams at age 12. So his reaction to that implies that he sees Rock Lee as far above average, right? And I would argue that it's hard to impress someone like Kakashi. A good example to take is someone like Madara. He isn't impressed by almost anything. He wasn't impressed until Naruto and Sasuke got 6 pass powers, right? So this notion of being impressed, from that you can extrapolate, well, they're seeing something that they consider something to be respected, right? So Kakashi deemed Rock Lee as someone that should be respected when he opened the gates. From that you can argue, well, if he's that impressed by it, then maybe his weaker kid self would struggle against it. That's an induction that you can make based off that reaction that he had. Again, that's not concrete, that's not 100% definitive, but that's an argument for Rock Lee as far as narratively is concerned. So now, an argument for Kakashi would obviously be he was a Jonin at 12, and Rock Lee was barely trying to pass the Chunin exams at 12. Hence, he's more powerful because of his rank. I would argue that one's a little bit more weak as far as its foundations. The premise is a little weaker because it's a false dichotomy to assume someone of higher rank is superior to someone of lower rank. A good example is Naruto. He's a fucking Genin all Shippuden. By the time he's at the war arc, he's still a Genin, technically speaking, but he's fucking a god amongst all other shinobi. He's using his 9-tailed chakra to aid the entire shinobi alliance, and he's a fucking Genin. You're telling me that these Jonins are above him? Obviously not, right? From obvious observational evidence. So there's arguments for both sides. I lean towards Rock Lee because of his feats. I would say that Rock Lee, his feat against Gaara was more impressive than anything Kakashi did as a kid, because Gaara was arguably the strongest person in his village already, with the power that he had from being a Jinchuriki. Already the strongest in his village. Kid Kakashi struggled with stone shinobi, right? So take that into perspective. So I would lean towards Rock Lee, to be honest. So, all right, folks. Any questions you might have, feel free to ask. Make sure you hit the like button as well. I have other questions here that were pre-asked, pre-live stream. See if you guys have asked anything. What's going on, Sean? Sorry, Mr. That's all good. Was that a 5-day festival? It's all good. Hope you're doing well. You as well. Thanks for coming in. We're just answering some questions here. Some good ones, I might add. Alright, so the next one someone asked me was Sasori and Deidara versus Armless Orochimaru. Alright, so obviously Armless Orochimaru is much weaker than his prime self, but there's actually an argument to be made for Orochimaru, even Armless. Alright, so this is an argument I would make if you're on that side. Deidara struggled with Kakashi and Two-Tail Sasuke, right, when he was being chased by them. He was evading them. And Sakura was able to react to Sasori, right? She was efficiently giving Sasori a hard time. I wouldn't say she's superior to Sasori, but she was relative enough in terms of speed and AP to kind of threaten him a little bit. It broke his original puppet body, etc. So that implies she is of someone to note. So Armless Orochimaru, right, now speaking of him, was able to compete against 4-Tails Naruto. Right? And clearly there's some kind of unquantifiable multiplier as Naruto opens more tails. You can see it from our own eye. The own eye test can imply that, right? 2-Tails, he's giving Deidara a hard time. 4-Tails, he's giving Orochimaru a hard time, and he mortally wounded Jiraiya with 4-Tails. 6-Tails, he's able to press a fatigued Tendo pain. 8-Tails, he's breaking out Chibaku Tensei. So clearly there is an upward trend in capability as Naruto opens more and more tails until he leads up to KCM, where that's him at his optimal level with the 9 tails. So from that you can transitively scale Orochimaru above Deidara and Sasori, right? They have weaker feats, or anti-feats if you want to look at it that way, and Orochimaru has superior feats. Of course, it's not that simple. There is arsenals we have to look at, and the fact that they're working in conjunction, right? I would argue that the Akatsuki duos are aligned in a way where they're going to work together in conjunction, right? Itachi and Kisame work well together. Deidara and Sasori work well together. Who else? The other duos, Konan and Pain. So I would argue Orochimaru would have a chance of winning. It would come down to his hacks. His hacks and his speed, I would argue, are superior to that of Sasori and Deidara. I think the feats show it, and I think he would still have a good chance of winning. So. Alright, see if you guys ask any questions here. See here. Alright, someone asked Sage Mode Naruto versus Kisame. That's a good question. Pain Arc Naruto. So we look at Kisame's feats. His most impressive one was slaying Killer Bee. I think it was implied that Killer Bee was superior to Naruto until he attained a KCM. Now, the most contentious thing is the speed, right? Reaction times, as stated by Naruto himself, are better in Sage Mode. He stated that himself when facing the third Raikage. He was more confident in using Sage Mode than KCM against the Raikage. So that's an important thing to note. Now, you gotta ask yourself, is the third Raikage faster or of the same caliber as the fourth? I don't think so, and here's why. The fourth Raikage is implied to be relative and arguably superior to Killer Bee. Killer Bee is a perfect Jinchuriki of the 8 tails. Jinchurikis are stated to be stronger than the tailed beast on their own. The third Raikage is famous for stalemating the 8 tails, right? So you can just make a logical deduction and say, well, he stalemates someone weaker than Killer Bee. Killer Bee is relative to the 4th rate Kage. So I would argue Kisame is faster than the 3rd rate Kage, at least in the Water Dome, bare minimum. So I would argue, now the contentious part is how much weaker is Pain Arc Naruto in comparison to War Arc Naruto with Sage Mode. That's the most contentious part here. I would still lean towards, let's see here. I might lean towards Naruto because he did react to Tendo Pain, and I'm under the impression that Tendo Pain is faster than Kisame. I think most people would agree with that. Probably Pain Arc Naruto. Probably. But I think Kisame could win in certain situations with the right parameters established. So that's a good one to think about, though. But I lean towards Naruto. 3 Sannin versus Sekitachi and Pain. We're using Orochimaru. We're using the Orochimaru that fought Hiruzen. Okay. So the 3 Sannin, so you're talking about Prime Orochimaru, at least at that time, versus Sekitachi and Pain. Itachi and Pain are a different caliber. Even Sekitachi and Pain, they would win. Pain's hacks, Itachi's hacks. I would argue that there's a possibility that Itachi's speed is still superior to everyone in the Sannin. Yeah, they would most definitely lose. There's the Genjutsu threat. There's Pain's Shubaku Tensei's threat. There's all kinds of threats. There's their souls getting ripped out by Pain, which he certainly would be able to do. So yeah, definitely Itachi and Pain. Could Kisame still even absorb? Yeah, that's a good question. Could he absorb Naruto's Senjutsu? How would Samehada react to that? Would it react badly? Because it's not necessarily the typical chakra. It's Senjutsu. And if we saw Pain try to absorb it, he turned into a toad. Right? So there's an argument to be made that he won't even be able to absorb the Senjutsu chakra because there is a detrimental effect, which is turning into a fucking toad. It has different properties, right? Intangible properties to it that make it dangerous to absorb if you don't know how to wield it. So that's a good point. Alright, so let me continue on. Again, folks, super chat questions are prioritized, so if you want to answer now. Someone asked the most evil character in Naruto. So this is a good question. I thought about it, and I came to the conclusion that it's most likely Hidan. Here's why. Hidan killed for the thrill of it, and due to his fundamentalist nature when it comes to his religion, right? The religion of Jashin. So he did it for the thrill, and because of his fundamentalist beliefs in Lord Jashin, whatever that exactly entails of, we don't know. So when you think of Hidan, all that comes to mind is pure sinistry. He's a sinister, vile individual. He has no moral compass. He is one of the few villains that are not morally gray, right? Madara was morally gray. Pain was morally gray. Obito was morally gray, arguably, especially later on. Someone like Hidan is not. It's pure chaotic evil intention. He's an invidious character. There is no moral compass. He only leans one way. There is no moral spectrum for him. There is no leeway for someone like that. There's no conviction. There's only chaos and evil intention. So Hidan is probably the evilest. You could argue Gaara as well in part 1. Very similar. But I would argue that there was 2 parts to his personality. One, yeah, he did it out of the thrill. And another was due to him trying to find himself. So it wasn't exactly just pure chaotic intention. So I think Hidan was most definitely the most evil. Yeah. Alright. Someone asked Edo Pain versus Edo Itachi. We saw that fight. Itachi won. Itachi was implied by Kishimoto to be faster. He saved KCM, Naruto, and Killer Bee from having their souls ripped out. And people make the argument, well, he didn't see him. Well, he wasn't exactly looking Killer Bee's way either. So there's an argument for that. And Kishimoto wouldn't have had it happen that way if he wasn't implying superiority. So the most contentious part is the Chibaku Tensei. That neither side can answer. You can't prove that Itachi could destroy it or wouldn't be able to destroy it on his own. That's something that's inconclusive. So the burden of rejoinder would be on someone arguing for Edo Pain, because we saw the fight. Edo Itachi won. So Of course, it's not that black and white, but there's more for Itachi. That's the point. All right. Continue on here. See if there's any more pre-asked live stream questions. All right. See if there's any questions here. What's the name of Android 18 and 17? Oh yeah, someone already said it. Lapis and Lazuli, yeah. I didn't ever remember that, to be honest. I mean, so used to calling them androids. I'm not gonna lie. Alright, so the questions are here. Alright, so someone asked, rank these three in terms of potential. So now we're going to Dragon Ball. Gohan, Frieza, and Broly. Three of the highest potential individuals in the entire verse, right? So this is my ranking of it. So Frieza and Gohan are very hard to compare. They both have very high potential. But I lean towards Gohan. So this is why. So let's break down Frieza's potential first. I would say he has a lot of potential clearly, but it did take him an entire decade in the hyperbolic time chamber to get to where he's at, right? And it took him 4 months, which is extremely impressive, to get to Super Saiyan Blue levels, or at least close to it. So that's Frieza, right? Now let's break down Gohan's feats. The Cell Arc, right? The Cell Arc boost in power that he had was one of the greatest jumps in power of all time. He made everyone look like fodder mid-battle, right? He was clearly inferior to Cell. And then he gets his potential, along with his tenacity increasing, results in him beating Cell, right? And keep in mind, everyone else were barely competing with Cell Juniors, and he just shot past everybody like that. And then, and obviously in the newest movie, which is at bare minimum anime canon, we see what he does, right? We see what the heights that he's reached. So he has some of the biggest jumps in the smallest time frames compared to Frieza, right? And some very significant jumps in power, I'd argue. What's going on, McLegend? Thanks for coming in. He also had doubt which hindered his power. Yeah, the point is that potential was there, though. Have you ever seen Frieza get some kind of boost like that? No, he doesn't. It takes him more time. That's the point I'm trying to make. Now, number one, we can all guess who has the most potential. It's fucking Broly. Broly, in the movie, right, the Broly movie is super. He had the biggest jump I've ever seen. He was struggling with Super Saiyan Vegeta, and by the end of it, he's fucking fodderizing Super Saiyan Blue Goku and Vegeta simultaneously, to the point where they had to leave the battlefield. That jump, I don't think a lot of people understand. It's so astronomically high, so astronomically large, that to quantify that would probably result in a gargantuan number if you're trying to put a numeric value on it. That's the single greatest jump I think I've ever seen. So Broly has the most fucking potential. That guy, imagine him with 10 years in a hyperbolic time chamber. What the fuck would he accomplish? Would he be whipping Whis' ass? Would he be fucking whipping the Xeno twins' ass? I don't know about that, but he's a fucking monster. And it's easily Broly. Easily. I am back. What's going on, Cubs? Thanks for coming in. I think if Broly and Cell Max was stuck on a planet together, I think Broly's got the back. Broly has more potential, yeah. Let's see here. What's going on, McLegend? Wanted to ask, how do you think Goku would have handled God Toppo instead of Vegeta? Based off the narrative that was told, right, we see Vegeta awaken this new form, right? Super Saiyan Blue evolution, when him and Goku were trying to press Jiren. You can imply, due to how they were side by side battling Jiren, some level of relativity. Maybe that's what he needed for that gap to kind of to become more narrow between him and Goku. Goku had his Super Saiyan Blue Kaioken times 20 amp, or times 10 times 20, and Vegeta needed that extra boost to kind of close that gap. So I would argue they're somewhat relative. So I would argue Goku would probably have similar success, probably slightly more. I would argue, right? Because he was the main attraction. So yeah, I think he might possibly be able to get rid of Toppo without having to do what Vegeta did. I would argue it's a possibility. This goes back to the idea of who do you think stronger, right? When you're excluding Ultra Instinct, that is, in the Tournament of Power, I still think Goku was above Vegeta, right? Seth talked about this in his recent videos. Goku, the way I look at it is Toriyama established this presupposition from the Saiyan arc on. As soon as Goku started to train, got Kaioken, Goku was always a little bit ahead of Vegeta. And the way I look at it is there's this threshold here, and there's always some deviation taking place between the two. Right, when Majin Vegeta fought reborn Goku when he was revived, they were damn near equal. They were stated to be equal, right? So they were right in the middle of that threshold. But obviously there's deviations. When Goku got MUI, clearly he was much, much superior to Vegeta at that point. Now, take for example, Vegeta, when Beerus slapped Bulma, he deviated from the threshold, and he was superior. He admitted it, Goku admitted it. So it's a deviating and kind of indefinite kind of scale that is always tipping. That's the way I look at Vegeta and Goku. So what's going on? Thanks for the $2, Sean. Appreciate the donation. It's much appreciated. King Vegeta versus Bardock. Seems to be implied that Bardock is superior. I know that King Vegeta was a higher rank, but we can't really take that as something to revere because Goku was a low-class Saiyan, and look at him. So probably Bardock. Black Adam versus Apocalypse. That's a good question. I feel like Apocalypse is just, as far as his lore, he seems to be... Let's see. Apocalypse versus Black Adam. I would lean towards Apocalypse. Based on the top of my head. I'm not an expert on that, but Broly's jump in power was Rage. Yeah, but the point is, if he didn't have the potential, he never would have reached that anyway, despite Rage. That's the point. Transforming several times because he was on Vampa for 40 plus years. The potential is what allows that Rage to push you to those heights. That's the point. You could be someone like who has no potential, and you can be as mad as you want. You're not going to reach that level. Or you're not going to jump leaps and bounds like Broly does, despite how angry you are. That's the point. Saiyans are just naturally, genetically predisposed to have very high potential, right? We've seen it. Gohan, Broly, even Vegeta and Goku, even though they have less potential than those two. It's just a genetic predisposition that they have. Alright, folks, feel free to keep asking questions. But Frieza has extremely high potential, though. That is absolutely true. It's ridiculous what he's accomplished. And it's debatable. I agree it's debatable who has more potential, Gohan or Frieza. It's not. There's no definitive answer to that. Broly definitely has more than both of those guys, though. Absolutely. He had little to no training, and he's fucking fodderizing Goku and Vegeta immediately. Or no real legitimate training, not training such as the caliber of Goku and Vegeta's training. He definitely didn't have that. Yeah, his dad taught him what he fucking knew. The low class fodder ass dad that he had. Not gonna teach him much though. So. Alright, folks, feel free to ask questions. Do you think Frost has the same potential as Frieza? That's a good question. I just think Frieza was like that golden boy, in comparison to all the other of his race. I don't think so, based off what I know. I just don't think he does. Um, I would say no, unless we learn more of him. Let's see if there's any other questions here. Does the Azar in human form play a part in his anger? Possibly. That's a good question, though. Because if he did, had he trained with anyone before the tournament, it would have definitely played a match. He definitely would have played a bigger role. I do agree with that. But it's hard to quantify what his potential truly is. I would need to know more, but I would presuppose that he doesn't. Hanzo versus the third Kaze Kage. That's a good question. So, the Kaze Kage failed to defeat Sasori. Right, Sasori was pressed by Sakura and Chiyo, an older Chiyo and Sakura. Yes, he's not inferior to them. I'm not saying that, but he was pressed. He did have to try a little bit. So I would argue to even put him at signing level is contentious. But then you're gonna ask how much weaker has Chiyo gotten? Because obviously Chiyo was relative to Hanzo in her prime. It's a tough question. I would lean towards Hanzo. I think his lore, his feats are just more impressive. Again, I know Sasori gave himself up at the end against Sakura. I know that, but still. I think potential works like this. The Saiyans, Goku, Vegeta gets 40 times stronger. Piccolo's about 70-80% of that, and the humans are like about 30 to 40, not taking Zenkais. That's fair, yeah. How far have you made it into Bleach? I'm on the part where I think they're called the Arankars have made their debut. Ichigo got fucking fodderized by one of the Arankars. Forgot the guy's name. There's so many fucking names. I gotta memorize all of them. And one of the betraying captains that left the Soul Society had to discipline one of the Arankars. Took him to Aizen. Aizen obviously looked cold as shit. You know, he seemed like the top dog, the head honcho of everyone involved in that organization, the spotter or whatever. And Aizen is just polarizing. You know, he's a polarizing guy. And the Arankars, one of them fought a captain. I think he was from Squad 10. Squad 10 captain got his ass fucking beat, and he barely dealt with the guy. And that's a fucking captain, so clearly Aizen's on a different caliber, power scaling wise. He scales above all those guys that were fucking giving captains a hard time and Ichigo a hard time. That's pretty impressive. So Aizen might be the strongest person in the verse. The only guy that I would logically, obviously I don't have the knowledge yet, that I would see giving him a hard time as far as the characters I'm familiar with would probably be fucking Yamamoto himself. It's crazy. It's crazy. Did you end up skipping the Bound arc? Yeah, I did. That shit was too fucking long. I'm tired of that shit. Alright, let's see if there's any pre-asked questions here. Give me a second, folks. Let's see. All right, someone asked, is Hickham's dictum a viable stance in scaling debates? Heard of the term. Let me look it up so I specifically know what it means. Okay. Let me see a good definition here. I know it's like the antithesis of Akram's razor, but I need to see what that exactly entails of. What's going on, Ikrama? Thanks for coming in. I think the captain's name was Toshiro. Yeah, it was. That's the one that had a tough time against someone that seemed the lower rank of Aizen's organization. That's fucking insane. That is fucking insane. That goes to show you what Aizen would probably. I mean, he did fodder Aizen when he first betrayed the Soul Society. Fucking one shot at him. I remember that. That was fucking crazy. So. Okay, so I think I got an idea of what Hickham's dictum is. So I think it depends on the context, right? So if it's something to counter Occam's razor, then it really depends on the context and what exactly you're discussing. If it's something that if you're discussing something that can be easily concluded as 1 + 1 = 2, then it wouldn't be viable. But if it's something where ambiguity is pre-established, a contentious topic, then it's not just simple. It's not just as simple as the simplest explanation. So I think it depends on the context, really. So it's viable in some instances, not all. I'll say that. Because if you're using it in a case where it really is 1 + 1 = 2, moderate stronger than 10-10 or something like that, then you're being disingenuous at that point. That's my point. Black Frieza stomps Gohan. Contentious, man. If superhero is canonical to the manga, then he doesn't. But if it's not, then you have a good case for Black Frieza could beat him. I don't know about stomps, but he beat him, yeah. Alright, folks, feel free to keep asking questions here. I have a few other ones here. So this is a miscellaneous question. It's not anime related, but of course keep asking anime questions or whatever questions you may have. Someone asked me, what is time? What exactly is time? So to be specific, time is a temporal dimension within our own multidimensional tangible universe, right? And the way it's defined, it's the indefinite continued progress of existence and events. So there's this intangible temporal dimension all around us that is the machine that keeps everything progressing indefinitely, right? Events, our own bodies, it's the reason why we see time continue to progress. The temporal dimension that is time. So to me, the Bleach verse is stronger than Naruto. Basically, DBZ with swords. I can't really speak on that just yet until I finish it. Then I can give my answer on that. Alright. Any other questions, folks, you may have? Feel free to ask. Any and all. Alright, so I'll keep answering these questions if someone asks something. Someone's asked me, SpongeBob versus Sanji, who would win in a cooking contest? Well, SpongeBob transcends reality. Essentially, he can make the perfect cuisine, right? In theory, he could create anything. I mean, he outdid a god in Neptune in that one episode. His single Krabby Patty was able to fodderize Neptune, and it humiliated a god. So, SpongeBob is God, essentially. And I would say he probably can rival almost anyone in any fictional reality in cooking. He has that kind of power. So. Alright, guys, any questions you may have, feel free to ask. If you're interested in Bleach versus Naruto battle, I need to conclude Bleach before I answer that question. any questions you may have, folks. Alright. Kid Buu versus Saitama. Saitama, the highest you could scale him based off the events that I'm familiar with is possibly multi-galaxy level. If you presuppose that all those lights that he extinguished when he threw his serious punch were galaxies, right? I think most people think they're stars. So that would put him solar system level. There isn't enough to definitively or at least safely place him at a universal level or even around there. So Kid Buu would win in most honesty. In most likely he would win. So like they're open about having an opinion until you've experienced something. Not many people are open to that. Yeah. You gotta be open-minded to build a optimal mind when it comes to issues where logic is required. Right? You can't just be subjective. You can't have a subjective lens or let your own ego or pride get in the way. That's a recipe for disaster. So, what martial arts is best for defending yourself in real life? I would say boxing. So if you're talking about a singular martial art, some good ones would be kickboxing, boxing, yeah, of course. Muay Thai is a little bit more slow pace. It's more mechanical. But yes, there is more limbs involved. It is called the 8-limb sport for a reason. I would lean towards one where more limbs are used. Kickboxing, Muay Thai. Boxing is a good one, though. It definitely is a good one. Do you like Amato's dad drip? Yeah, I mess with Amato. He's very intriguing. Even not just aesthetically speaking, but as far as his personality, he's very deceptive. I think there's more than meets the eye with him. I think he has ulterior motives that are yet to be explored. He's like the antithesis, right, of Shikamaru. He is the converse or the inverse of Shikamaru. He has the intelligence, but his moral compass is obviously much different. Let's see. Is Black Frieza low multiversal if he's one-shotting UE and UI? Okay, so that's a good question. So let's discuss that. Now, rationally, we can deduce this. He is greatly superior to Vegeta and Goku, right? In their regular forms, not fused. We can easily deduce that. And some people might say that the beating was so drastic that the inferiority is so significant that Frieza is just in a whole different league, and that is the case. But some people don't realize the astronomical, gargantuan value of power you need to have from a numerical standpoint to be low multiversal. I would say it's a possibility. I would say if we're using these numbers that Toriyama used, I think, when he was classifying Beerus and Whis was a 15, right? And Beerus was what, a 10 or some shit like that, an 8 or a 10, something like that. Black Frieza would probably be like a 13, a 12, a 13, something like that. I don't think he's Whis level yet, and that's from my own subjective lens. You obviously can't specifically numerically quantify his power level. That's what I would assess it around 13, maybe 14. I just quite think he's Whis level. I don't think he's there yet. I might be wrong. Maybe Toriyama, that's his intention. But that's my assessment right now. I just don't understand, if they keep getting buffs, they're going to reach it eventually. It's going to be inevitable. Logically, it makes sense. Even 1 million trillion is not infinite. Exactly. So, it starts to get more and more ambiguous as numbers get more and more gargantuan. All right, it starts to become harder for our own human brains to perceive and understand that value. Like we look at the number 1, we look at the number 1,000. It's easy to perceive. We're looking at 10 billion and fucking 100 quintillion. It's harder to grasp that concept, right? So all we know is that it's fucking huge. That's what we do know. All right, folks. Any questions you may have, continue to ask. Anything above? Yeah, once you get to universal, multiversal, the numbers are they're insignificantly large. Like the numbers don't really matter anymore. So multipliers start to become irrelevant because the numbers are so fucking huge. All right, they'll start filling up. If you were to write out these numbers, you'd be filling up pages and pages of fucking sheets of paper. That's how large these numbers are. So, all right. So, other questions here. Someone asked, "What if Dragon Ball Z was like Naruto and Naruto was like DBZ?" Interesting question. To put it short, DBZ. If DBZ was like Naruto, Goku would be a better father. Simply put. And if Naruto was like DBZ, we'd have thousands of episodes of Naruto. I think that answers the question. It'd be that simple. I feel if they're universal at God and have multiple arcs of buffs, after that it's like, when do you get there, you know? Yeah, the writers always make it make sense, you know. They don't feel... writers most definitely don't follow a linear scaling when increasing powers of these people. At times, they're forced to retcon people. You know, we saw it in Naruto, and Hiruzen was the strongest Kage of all time. Strongest Hokage. Obviously, got retconned because Hashirama, by the war arc, was the top dog, obviously narratively implied. It's the same thing with Dragon Ball. You know, they're going to have to retcon here and there. They're going to have to put subtle inconsistencies here and there for the narrative to be somewhat cohesive to us and coherent. So at the end of the day, it's also about an entertaining narrative. That's important. They stop selling mangas, they stop making money. So they can't necessarily stick to logically sound and consistent scaling. So Kage versus Toneri, yeah, Kage is pretty sure considered superior. Kage stomps. Most likely, Kage, you can scale her all the way up to solar system. Toneri, cut the moon in half. He's definitely above planet level, I'd say. At least in that universe. So Naruto's around Nappa level. I don't know about that. I don't think Baryon Naruto would have trouble with Nappa. He'd probably be able to deal with a lot of people. Alright, folks. Other questions that were pre-asked. Someone asked, okay, so this is an IRL topic here. What are your thoughts on overpopulation on Earth? This is a good question. So it's important to look at the facts, which I did to answer this question because it was pre-live stream, right? So I got into it a little bit. Theoretically, right, if we do presuppose that we don't destroy ourselves, right, or Mother Nature doesn't cause a Mother Nature-induced extinction event, then eventually the world will be overpopulated to a point where it becomes survival of the fittest, right? Technological innovation won't suffice no longer. Unless, theoretically, innovation reaches a point where theoretically we can create more space. I don't know, it's beyond us right now as far as technological capability, at least to my knowledge. So if we presuppose that we don't destroy ourselves, we're still around, then I would say eventually, unless technological innovation negates it, we're going to reach a point where it's survival of the fittest. There's just not enough resources to extrapolate from the earth. There's not enough anything. Not enough water, nothing. So continuing on, here's the good part though. Thankfully, approximately 65% of the earth is undiscovered. So there's much, much, much more land for industrial, commercial, and residential development, right? There's tons of land. And theoretically, I'm sure there's going to be technological innovation that allows underwater civilization. I don't think that's hard to fathom at all. I think it's going to become a reality in maybe I think it's going to take quite some time. Maybe the next couple centuries, maybe millennia. I think if the world isn't destroyed before then, it's definitely a possibility. So, however, you could argue that there is overpopulation already in densely populated areas, right? Condensed areas where there's fucking millions of people. Mexico City, fucking China and Beijing, or Beijing, China, Mexico City, even in modern parts of the world, modern countries that fucking LA, New York, densely populated. So, take that into consideration. I would argue they're already experiencing what it's going to be like. to be overpopulated. They are overpopulated in those within that radius. They are overpopulated. So. Someone asked, "What do you think? Do you want to debate?" I don't debate just anyone these days, though. But join my Discord. Kakazu versus Jiraiya. I mean, Kakazu fell to Rasen Shuriken Naruto, who's relative to Kakashi, as stated by Kakashi, and Jiraiya was still the top dog until Naruto learned Sage Mode. So, Jiraiya versus Kisame. I mean, you could use the statement that Kisame himself made, right? He said, "If I were to fight him, if me and Itachi were to fight him, we'd die." We can use his statement, right? Because he's not undercover and he doesn't have some ulterior motive. However, I don't think it's that simple, because I would argue Itachi further influenced that claim, because he didn't want to fight Jiraiya because he's a fellow Leaf Shinobi and he's undercover. So you could argue that. And also his feats. I mean, he fucking fodderized Killer Bee. Dominated him. Put his face in the dirt, and took him out. So I think it would be a tough battle. I do think it would be competitive. Jiraiya has a lot of hacks himself. It's kind of hard to assess who would win that one off the top of my head. I would probably lean towards Sage Mode Jiraiya, probably, but it's still hard to assess because Kisame has tons of chakra. He has Samehada at his side. He does have the Water Dome if he's able to get it off in time. I lean towards Jiraiya because of the statement made, but it's really tough to assess. So. Kisame was stated to be intimidated of Jiraiya, had no reason to lie at the time, like Itachi. And again, Kisame absorbs Jiraiya's Sage Mode Jutsu. Yeah, it's a tough one to assess. I lean towards Jiraiya. If it's one-on-one, I lean towards Jiraiya. Alright, folks, keep asking your questions here. Including IRL. It doesn't have to be anime. I enjoy any IRL topics. Red Pill community stuff. IRL stuff. Politics. Controversy. Whatever. Orochimaru versus Killer Bee would be a good fight. I agree. That would be interesting. That would be interesting. I think once you get to perfect Jinchurikis, you start to get to another level. They're clearly stronger than the tailed beasts themselves, which is stated. Orochimaru versus Killer Bee would be interesting. If we take away Edo Tensei, Orochimaru has a lot of hacks. I don't know if he'd be able to contend with someone like a perfect Jinchuriki of Killer Bee's caliber, though. It's tough. It's tough to assess that. Edo Orochi? You mean Orochimaru with Edo Tensei? Clearly, he stomps almost anyone with Edo Tensei. Tobirama versus Killer Bee. Tobirama's a tough one. He's a tough customer. Because on one side, he lost to 20 S plus rank Shinobi. Right? He implies that he's slower than Minato. Implies it himself. Yet he's able to tag Jubito. Tobirama admittedly has better feats. I mean, Killer Bee didn't really have any feats in the war arc, to be honest. I would lean towards Tobirama, but there's arguments for Killer Bee as well. He's relative to the 4th Raikage. And you could even argue in terms of speed. It's a tough one to assess. I lean towards Tobirama. Empirically, it leans towards it. Maybe rationally, we might lean towards Killer Bee, but yeah. Part 1 Kakashi versus Kimimaro, that would be interesting. That would be very interesting, actually. There's a lot of ambiguous factors that would play a role. I wish would be nice to be answered, actually. Jiraiya doesn't have good speed feats or strength feats. I disagree with that. Kakazu would never let Jiraiya enter Sage Mode. Sage Mode Jiraiya is faster than Kakazu, most likely. keep in mind, Sage Jiraiya was fighting Pain. He wasn't fighting just any fodder. So, version 1 Killer Bee scales higher to MS Sasuke. Sasuke over Orochi now. He's not above Orochi. So Getsu even implies that he's weaker. And the only reason that he beat him is because Orochimaru was sick. And so Getsu also states that he didn't pass up his mentor until EMS. So that's not correct either. Kakazu's only under Obito. Oh, you're one of those guys, aren't you? No, he's not. He's not. Kisame whips Kakazu's ass. Sasori probably beats Kakazu. So no. Not correct. How strong do you think Jiren will be when he's back on the screen? That's interesting. We can presuppose already that he's training. I think he's training right now as we speak in the fictional reality. I think he's going to reach new leaps and bounds. I think he's going to be able to contend with true UEI Goku. I think he's going to be a very well-respected and top-tier combatant like he was in the Tournament of Power. I would love to see him interact with Broly. However, I think Broly... Here's the problem with Broly. He has the most potential. He fodderized Goku and Vegeta, but he's not the main character. I wonder how Toriyama's going to keep that in balance, right? It's Broly's rationally supposed to be the strongest person here, right? But will that take away from the greatness of Goku and Vegeta narratively? That's something I can't wait to see how they work that out. That's what I'm very curious for. I want to see how they balance all that out and keep it consistent, not just to have the fan service, right, to keep everyone happy, but to also keep it logically consistent. There's a balance that the writers have to keep here, and I think Jiren is one of those characters. Well, it's very intriguing to see what they're going to do with him. So. Jorah and Topo. Topo is interesting too. I like Topo. Yeah, he's another guy that those guys. I'm very interested to see what they're gonna do with them in the future. I think good things are gonna happen. I think there's gonna be a rematch. Maybe it's not for the sake of the multiverse or something, but there will definitely be a rematch, and I can't wait to see it. So. Kimimaro with his versatile bone weaponry would be interesting against Kakashi with his ninjutsu and his Sharingan. Yeah. It really would come down to speed. If Kakashi is just faster and reacts quicker, then Kimimaro would be at a disadvantage. That's an interesting one. Kimimaro had so much potential. Unfortunately, he was sick, but he was supposed to be the next host of Orochimaru's Soul. A lot of potential. It's very unfortunate that he didn't get to, really progress as a shinobi. So, foretell Naruto versus Sasuke at their respective time. I think this is a two-sided argument. There's two sides to this. So, we all know that Orochimaru said to foretells Naruto, "You're out of Sasuke's league. Like, you're fucking fodder compared to him." That's what he was implying. Like, you're out of it. He literally said, "You're out of his league, man. Like, I'm dealing with you right now, and I'm sick, and you're not in his league. You're not in his fucking league." There's two ways you can interpret that. You can take it literally, and that means in a discussion, Sasuke's stronger. Or you could say he's just hyping Sasuke up to piss Naruto off further, which isn't hard, which isn't a stretch. That's headcanon. I think both interpretations are headcanon, but that's not a super outlandish claim to make. So I would lean maybe towards. It's a tough one to assess. I think I'd still lean towards Sasuke. I still lean towards Sasuke. And I think that statement is one that was for more than one reason. He said that to Naruto, one, because it's true, two, to piss him off further. I think that's why he said it. I don't think he was lying. And then again, it's my headcanon. So. Let's see here. I can debate you all if you want, but no. You need more help if you really think that, that's all I can say. I think Orochimaru said that only when Naruto was in his three tails. That's true. I think it wasn't the three tails. You're right. It's a tough one to assess, but I lean towards Sasuke. I still lean towards him, even though it's inconclusive. So. All right, folks, continue on. Again, you can ask IRL questions, NBA questions, NFL questions. I've been keeping up with the NFL season. UFC, of course, boxing, of course. So any questions you may want to ask, go ahead. This man's probably noodles undercover. Yeah. Probably. How well do you think the Lakers are going to do? It really depends on Anthony Davis' reliability as far as his health, because that guy is just inconsistent. He is very, very injury prone, and it seems the older he's getting, the more prone he's becoming to injury, which is just super unfortunate. Um, if he's healthy, they're championship caliber. You know, they're champion. Him and LeBron together are one of the greatest forces in NBA modern day right now. They're top tier. LeBron can't carry on his own. You know, no one can. Not against dynasties like the Warriors or all these other teams out there. You know, the Suns becoming more and more powerful every year, with Devin Booker improving year by year. Dallas Mavericks with John Chick becoming a monster. You know, they need Davis. Without Davis, they're not winning a ring, in my opinion. So it's just not gonna happen. Westbrook is he's spoiled goods, man. He's not the same no more. When he gets a triple double, it's fluff. It's all garbage time shit. Like, he's not efficient. It's about efficiency. It's not about stats, you know. So Patrick Beverly, he's gonna be good in the, you know, when it comes to the perimeter defense. It's gonna be good to have him around. Um, yeah. What do you think of the Tony versus Nate fight? Oh man, I have a lot of thoughts about that. I'm glad you asked me that. This is my thoughts on that fight. 2 words: old men. I am so happy that they changed the fight matchups, because fucking Nate Diaz would have gotten fucking obliterated by Khamzat. Khamzat would have fucked his shit up. Let's be honest. It would have been a fucking shit show. He would have been fucking mauled. He would have got his ass whooped via ground and pound. It would have been a fucking ass whooping. He looked old, man. Him and Tony look fucking old. And why is that? It's because Father Time beats everyone. Doesn't matter who you are. Even if you're Nate Diaz with all the durability in the world, Father Time catches up to you. And I'm glad that hopefully this is his last fight. Go box Jake Paul, man. Go make hundreds of millions of dollars. You deserve it. Stop fighting killers, getting your ass whooped like you did against fucking Jorge Masvidal. You got his ass fucking beat. That wasn't competitive. You know, so Tony too. Tony Ferguson needs to retire, man. Don't fight anymore. I don't want to see you get knocked out again like you did against Chandler. You know, I don't want to see that shit. So, old men going at it. They're legends. You know, they're going to be first ballot Hall of Famers. But it's clear as day that they're old and that they're washed up. It's not even a knock on them. That's just the human process, the human aging process. So, as far as the fight itself, Tony fought well, but the difference is I believe his body's just failing him because of his age. You know, all the explosiveness, all the explosive moves that he used to use, the spinning elbows, you know, the feints when he's feinting the double leg. He's slower now. Nate could read all that. He could perceive it. If it was him in his prime, Nate would have a tougher time reacting to that. He's not explosive anymore. As far as Nate, him too. He looked old as shit. It is what it is. So, all right. Kishimoto told me Kakuzu would beat Six Pass Madara. You're right. Raw durability. Beats Madara, beats Baramo, Naruto, beats Ishiki, beats Damon. You're right. Kishimoto did confirm that. You're right. Will we see a Conor McGregor versus Nate 3? I kind of don't want to see that for Nate's sake. I think Conor would beat the shit out of him now. Conor's in his prime. He has less mileage. You know, yeah, he did break his leg. Yes, he did. He broke his leg. That's very detrimental to a fighter's career, to have such a gruesome injury. But Nate has many, many miles on him. He's like a fucking 2002 Civic. Just hundreds of thousands of miles on him now, you know. So Conor's still relatively young in his prime. Hasn't fought for long periods of time. Yeah, he might be more rusty technically as far as technique, but his body's more fresh. I think he'd fuck Nate up. Nate's not the same. Then again, Nate surprises me. I mean, I didn't expect him to choke out Conor either the first time, but I would heavily lean towards Conor. Heavily. Anyone care about power scaling? Not yours. That's all I gotta say. Not that. On that note, thoughts on Kamza. Kamza is the best prospect I've seen since probably John Jones, Conor McGregor. I think he's a better prospect than Conor because he's more well-rounded than Conor. He has a better gas tank than Conor did. He has better. He has better, much better grappling than Conor did. I think his potential is immense, and I believe that he could be a champion. I really do. I think if he continues to evolve, he's not quite there yet. I don't think he beats Kamaru Usman tomorrow. I don't think he's there yet, but continue to progress, continue to challenge yourself. And I think he can be a champion. He has the potential for it. So, very high potential. All right. Back to anime. Naruto with perfect stage mode versus Orochimaru with his hands would be a good fight, but Orochimaru with his ninjutsu would give Naruto a run for his money. How might I lean towards? That's a good question. Perfect stage mode Naruto. We could argue he would most definitely be faster than Orochimaru, right? But Orochimaru has Edo Tensei. That's a huge problem for anybody, even if you're Kage or Hokage. I would lean towards without Edo, right? Let's assume that he doesn't use it, whatever reason. I might lean towards Naruto. I mean, he did contend with pain and even Tendo pain to some extent. Yes, he was fatigued, but it's still an accomplishment. With Edo, obviously Orochimaru stomps. He just summoned Minato and Hashirama to foderize Naruto. So, Sage Naruto over Sage Jiraiya. All right, that's your first correct assessment today. Yes. MS Itachi equals Sage Naruto. No. I think Nate versus McGregor will happen, even if they old as hell. Yeah, the money's there. Money makes the world go round. Money puts a smile on Uncle Dana's face. It puts money on Dana's face, on all the UFC head honchos. They'll definitely fucking do it. You know, that's if Nate wants to come back. That would be something that might wake him up in the morning. You know, that's multi-million-dollar fight right there easily. So, if he decides to come back, that's definitely what he'll want. You know, so it's definitely a high possibility. So, hypothetical perfect Sage Mode Jiraiya versus Sage Mode Naruto. Perfect Sage Mode Jiraiya. Hypothetical, right? Hypothetically speaking. It's tough to assess, right? I would lean towards Jiraiya because he's just more experienced, has more of an arsenal at this point in comparison to Naruto. Probably not Jiraiya. Yeah. True. His potential is massive. Yep, Kamza is a fucking monster, man. And as far as him missing weight, I think it was somewhat of a conspiracy. Maybe fucking Dana told him, miss weight because you're gonna kill Nate. So please miss weight, and we'll give you Holland. You guys were talking shit in the pre-press conference anyway. Perfect matchup. Tony doesn't have to get his ass whooped either by Ji Ling Zhang, whatever his name is. So, win-win. I can't believe Floyd Mayweather is gonna fight the greatest boxer of all time, Deji. I agree. He's gonna take his first L. Absolutely. Deji is the greatest of all time. Shout out to Deji. Naruto stomps Jiraiya all day. Let's see. What is that true? Wait, is that true? You mean the conspiracy? I hope so. Be a fun conspiracy. Thoughts on the Canelo fight? I'm heavily leaning towards Canelo, and here's why. Triple G looks old. In his last fight, he looked old. Yes, he won the fight. He won by knockout, to give him credit, but he looked older, more like slower, not as explosive, not as powerful. I think Triple G is going to have a tough time against a prime Canelo, a hungry Canelo that wants to redeem himself after the Bivol loss. I lean towards Canelo. I really do. I think it's going to be more one-sided. This is going to be the most one-sided fight between the two, in my opinion. Due to the age, due to the mileage, due to Canelo still improving. I think he's still getting better. Yes, he lost to Bivol, but I think he's still improving. I don't think we've seen the best of Canelo Alvarez just yet, honestly. So, what's going on? 23 days later. Thanks for coming in. For all the folks that just came in, make sure to hit the like button. Any donations are greatly appreciated. They go back to the channel. There's a couple of big ones last week. If it's $20 plus, I'll put it on the screen here. Release my inner Seth the programmer and put it on the screen. I did a few guys, donated big money. I appreciate you guys once again. So if you donate 20 plus, I'll put it on the screen. If you have any video recommendations, super chat me and I'll do the videos, etc. Just to let you know. Connor's gonna break his other leg. He's doing steroids. Let's be honest. He's doing steroids right now. He is because he's living life. Why don't we see Goku and then bring back characters like Bardock and Under 16, etc.? That would be an interesting dynamic. I think Seth talked about this. He talked about his Bardock coming back and really teaching his son tenacity and ferociousness to increase his power level. I think that would be an interesting dynamic. It'd obviously be a fan service, but I would love to see someone like Bardock come back. Definitely. How do you feel after Canelo losing to Bivol? I don't think it was so much of a skill gap. I think it was a size gap. Size matters. Bivol easily 195 plus naturally. That guy's a big fucking dude, man. Canelo, yeah, he's a thick dude. Walks around maximum he walks 180. Maximum. Bivol, I wouldn't be surprised if he's north of 200 walk around weight. He's a big fucking dude. You know what the difference was his discipline. Bivol's discipline, man. Off the charts. He's literally like fucking Ivan Drago from Rocky 4. He doesn't break. He sticks to the game plan. Solid. And you know what the big difference was? Canelo in all his previous fights, even against fucking Kovalov, his power made an impact to the point where fighters had to adjust. They couldn't just take the beating. A good example is Caleb Smith. You saw his arms after the fight? They were fucking lumped up. Even in his defensive stance, even when he was playing the defensive, he was hurting Caleb Smith, and he broke Caleb Smith down like a tree. Just chopped him down. Bivol was too big of a tree to chop down. The punches weren't affecting him. He can go 12 rounds, taking punches to the arm, punches to the body. Canelo's not big enough to affect him. He can't affect him. Thank God he didn't go. You know, for you guys that didn't know, did you know Canelo was actually originally planning to go to cruiserweight? Imagine what would have happened there. He probably would have been knocked out because he's too small. He needs to stick to 168. He's not a light heavyweight. The world-class light heavyweights are going to give him a problem. Yes, he beat Kovalov. That's an old Kovalov with mileage after getting beaten by Andre Ward twice. Bivol is in the prime of his youth. So, shout out to Evangelist for the $20. And like I said, you sent 20. I put it on the screen. That's exactly what I'm going to do. Give me a second here while I do that. All right, let me quickly snap. Once again, thanks for the $20, brother. I'm gonna put this on the screen. Give me a second, folks. Save this. Give me a second. Where are they? I believe it is here. Give me a second where I do this. Almost done, folks. Give me a second. Thanks for the $20 once again, brother. Alright, I think I should be able to put it on the screen now. It's not that one. Let me find the right one. Not that one. Keep asking questions, folks, while I do this. I'm trying to figure out where I put the image. Alright. There we go. I should be able to put it up now. Alright, so let's read your question. Let's see what you said here. Put it right here. Alright, here's a real life fight for you. Kodiak Bear versus a hippo. By the way, I love your channel and content. You're doing an amazing job. Thanks, brother. Appreciate it. Would love to debate you even if you are up for it. Yeah, join my Discord. I'll say this. Guys, I don't like this and show love. I'm much more willing to debate, you know. So keep that in mind. But alright, so Kodiak Bear versus a hippo. That's a good one. Let me see the exact size of Kodiak. I believe they might be the largest of bears besides the polar bear, globally speaking. Let's see. Now, I think it would come down to the hippo's bite force. That would be very problematic for the bear. I'm pretty sure that the PSI of a hippo's bite is superior to that of a Kodiak or any bear, even probably the polar bear's bite for that matter. The only difference is Kodiak bears are more versatile I think hippos are larger, so it'll be detrimental to the bear. I think they weigh several thousand pounds. The biggest one's a polar bear, right? And I think they barely break 1,000, if I'm not mistaken. So I would lean towards the hippo. I think if it gets a vital, gets the neck, gets the head, it's over for the fucking bear. They're done. But let me see the specifics here. Let's see. Trying to see the specific tangibles here. Also, I do know that hippos are not messed with in the African savannah for a reason. You know, they're extremely territorial. So, I think on a balance of probabilities, the Kodiak bear will most likely be defeated 1-on-1. The hippos have the size advantage, and they have the bite force advantage as well. All right, folks, continuing on. Thanks again for the $20, Evangelos. I greatly appreciate it, man. Have you seen what happens in the new MH8 part? Oh, okay, I don't watch that. Everything's better than Boruto. Chimpanzee versus African crested porcupine. Chimpanzees, I don't think people realize how strong they are. They are several times stronger than a grown man. They would rip apart a grown man. So I would assume the chimpanzee, if it doesn't mind the porcupine's fucking thorns or whatever, probably rips apart a fucking porcupine. Let's see here. Hippo beats most animals. Correct. Yes, it does. Only polar bear has a chance. Yeah, better chance than the fucking Kodiak bear. Yeah. Hey everyone, what's going on, Infinite Cosmos? Thanks for coming in. Any questions you may have, folks, feel free to ask. Appreciate it. Bengal tiger versus African lion. If I'm not mistaken, tigers are inherently larger than lions are, size-wise. And I think they have a greater PSI by, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not exactly sure about that specific aspect. But I know they're larger. And I would say that they're more adequate for battle, considering that they're solitary instinctually, for the most part, unless they're mating or something. So probably the tiger. Yamato versus Hidan. That's a tough one because it's hard to gauge where Yamato is power scaling wise. At least to give a good assessment. I mean, he's vastly inferior to early Shippuden Sasuke. That's for sure. Now, I would lean towards Hidan probably. The question is, do you think that Asuma is stronger than Hidan? Excuse me. Do you think that Asuma is stronger than Yamato? I think so. I would lean towards him, rationally speaking. I would lean towards Hidan. Yamato puts him in a little wood box. Possibility, yeah, most definitely. Folks. Deku's much faster. Okay, that's something else. Alright, see if there's any questions that have been asked here. Where do you see Miria's potential as Shinobi? I don't think I'm familiar with that person. Let me look it up. Oh, this person. Okay, I remember now. I haven't thought of this person in a long time. So Asuma's daughter. From what I remember seeing in the anime, at least what I remember of her is that, you know, she has obviously traits from both her mother and her father. I don't think it's that high. I mean, in general, we can see that from a logical perspective. None of those shinobi were ever considered top tier. Asuma is, I believe, the son of Hiruzen, for what that's worth. He was never ever close to his fucking father. But I wouldn't say it's that high, to be honest. From my own subjective lens, to be fair. So, let's see here, folks. Alright, folks, you can keep asking questions. Any and all. IRL, sports. I appreciate the UFC questions. Very balls deep in that shit. I tell you that. Boxing, NBA, NFL, of course, anime, controversy, politics, anything. You gotta stir up the melting pot. You know, the melting pot of topics. So any questions at all are greatly appreciated. All right, so someone asked this. This is a pre-live stream question. How do you maintain a good physique, and what is your diet like? So, I think that's a good question. IRL topic. You know, I try to release my Intercept the Programmer when I can, hit the gym, you know, but all jokes aside, your diet has to be rigorous. It's not going to be easy if you do want a fucking Greek statue type physique. You have to eat clean, you know, lower the saturated fats, and increase your physical exertion in the gym, you know. I would say the best way to keep strength and also build muscle tone is to stay at moderate weight when lifting. You don't want to lift too heavy, because then you get thicker but not as much definition. If you lift light, you get weaker. Yeah, you'll get more cut, but you'll get weaker, and your muscle tone won't reach an optimal level as far as its radius and diameter from biceps to triceps, you know. So you want to stay at a moderate level and do progressive overload, right? Every week, do 6 to 12 reps for about 4 to 5 sets with short rest periods, anywhere from 30 to 90 seconds is good. You keep building that strength. Not only will it build strength, but it'll build muscle tone as well, because you're doing more repetitions with heavier weights, and you're not doing too much weight. As far as diet, keep it clean. If you eat like shit, you're gonna feel like shit, right? That's the way I look at it. Avoid junk food, shit like that. It's not easy. It's not an easy lifestyle, but if you want a Greek statue physique, then that's what you got to do. So, someone asked me that. It's a good question. All right, folks. As an Eagles fan, the 49ers will be fine. Okay. 49ers, they're all right. How well do you think the 49ers will do this year? Look at their roster real quick. 49ers. Whoops. Give me a second here, folks. I'm kind of curious with their roster currently. All right. So I believe they got Trey Lance, right? The new guy around the block. They got Garoppolo, vet. I think inconsistent and tough in the most, crucial of times, I'd argue. They have some very young and promising talent. Nick Bosa, Debo, stud. Actually, I'm a big fan of Debo. He's a very good, well-rounded receiver. And he can arguably be a slot receiver because of his ability to do run after the catch. It's very impressive. One of the most impressive I've seen in a long time as far as receivers coming out of college. So they got George Kittle, stud. I think they'll be fine. They're probably going to switch Garoppolo and Trey Lance if I'm guessing, and they want to build Trey Lance's professional type skill, right? They want to build him up and get him ready for the pros. So they'll probably have Garoppolo in there as well. They're promising, I'll tell you that. Promising team. AJ Brown is a beast, I agree. You got very promising talent there. All right, so there's a lot of questions that were asked earlier. Let me see here. Let's see. Hypothetical DMS Obito with 6 pass powers versus Kaguya. He has a good chance. I still think he would fail. Even DMS Kakashi 1-on-1 probably fail because of Kaguya's hacks in a more immortality type aspect. But I think he'd have a good shot. A good shot of winning. I still think the majority of times Kaguya would win, though. Let's see here. Jubito got beaten by Casey and Naruto. Okay, there's something else. Ten-tail is country level as stated by Payne. Payne's never seen a ten-tail, so. You beefing with Noodles? Noodles is fucking irrelevant, bro. I don't give a fuck about that loser. The only way I beef with him is if I get paid. Oh, thanks for the $20, Sir Geets. Appreciate it, brother. I'm going to put yours on the screen as well. I'm a man of my word. And I'll answer your question. Appreciate it, brother. Give me a second here. I put it on the screen. here. And save here. Give me a second, folks. I put it on the screen real quick. There it is. Put it right here underneath this one. Alright, so read your question real quick. MUI Vegeta over Wii seems kind of contentious, but I can kind of understand, especially if you consider how strong Granola Art, Goku, and Vegeta are. Yeah, so that's a good observation. It is contentious, most definitely. Even Seth himself said it's contentious. So I agree with his assessment. There's two ways you can look at this. You could use the logical scaling as far as numerical value is concerned, right? The overall multiplier that I would get would be ridiculously large, astronomically large. The number would be gargantuan. It would be hard to even perceive. So we have Goku and Vegeta, True UEI Goku, Ultra Ego Vegeta. Their power levels are already probably astronomically high. You multiply those, you get a ridiculous number. Here's an argument that can be made. The stronger the hosts of the fusion, or the stronger the participants, the greater the product, right? The end product is even larger, right? So, and on top of that, the fact that they state there's also more exponential increase on top of the product of their respective power levels. You'll end up with a ridiculous fucking number that some people would argue is above that of Whis or around Whis level. It's the way I look at it is, right, Toriyama stated that Whis is a 15, right? He used this numerical value, 15. Beerus was what, a 10 or something like that? Something like that. So I would say Vegito on that scale would probably be like a 13 or 14. 15 is contentious. I think he'd just be a couple tacks below, probably like 13, 14. Probably fuck up Beerus. I don't think he'd be able to contend with Whis quite yet. Again, that's my headcanon. There's no way to prove that. But that's the way to logically look at it. Obviously, it's all speculative. Right? We can only speculate these numerical values and the numerical increase in MUI Goku, or MUI Vegito, or True Ultra Instinct Vegito. So it's something interesting to think about, though. So most definitely. LeBron scales to Bug Bunny, so LeBron beats Floyd. Facts. MUI Vegito can never match 50% Whis. You can't prove that. Have you seen how Beerus got stronger automatically? You mean a plot device? Yeah, we've seen that. Let's see. MUI Vegito could be such a beast to see fight. I agree. Where would you rank Tim Duncan in top NBA players all time? Good question. I actually put him quite high. So, the way I would scale it, always just contentious. LeBron's number 1, MJ's number 2, Kareem's number 3, number 4 is probably Magic, number 5, maybe Bill Russell because of the accolades, 6, that's where it gets contentious. There's so many great players. 6, who else is there? There's Kobe up there, there's Larry Bird's up there. Who else? Some of the greats. Tim Duncan. I think I'd probably put Tim Duncan around 7th or 8th. I think Kobe, there's Shaq. There's so many players. I think he's definitely in top 10. Most definitely. Curry, he might just break top 10. Arguably. 4 rings, 2 MVPs if I'm not mistaken. 1 unanimous if I'm not mistaken. Or 2. I'm not sure about that. But he might arguably break top 10 now. He's starting to reach that rare air now. So I still have Duncan above him all time, for now. If he wins another one, shit, might be above him. Who would be a better fighter, Vegito or Yujiro? I'm not familiar with I'm not familiar with Baki like that, but Baki's more centered around technique and shit like that. So if you're talking about pure tangibles and skill as far as martial arts, but the thing about Saiyans is that their martial arts are elite. Although it's not emphasized, it's stated that their martial arts is just the best in the world. Someone like Goku, someone like Vegeta, and then you combine their skills, probably Vegito. From what I do know. Again, I'm not that familiar with Baki. So, Wilt Chamberlain for show. Yeah, he's someone that's overlooked a lot. His statistics are what put him so high. He's a fucking monster. The author says a lot of things, man. Authors change their mind. Authors have, you know, they change all the time. So, Yamoshi versus Super Saiyan God. I don't think I'm familiar with Yamoshi. Let me see. Oh, this guy. Okay. It's been a while since I've thought of him. Yamoshi is a Saiyan who could transform into a Super Saiyan long before Goku could. I mean, if you were to continue to improve, depends on his potential, you know. If it's just Super Saiyan, then obviously Goku, but yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, the real legendary Super Saiyan, yeah. He can beat their corpse. Yeah, that's... Alright, folks, if you have any other questions, continue to ask. I'll see if there's any other questions that were asked here. Someone asked, this is an IRL question, should humanity really focus on terraforming Mars when in reality we should be terraforming our own planet and climate change, etc.? So this is my opinion on this. I would say terraforming should be more of a side project currently. We should try to maximize the efficiency of Earth and maximize and try to negate as much as we can, you know, the detriment to the Earth as well, which is going to take technological innovation, right? So I would say it should be a project, but it shouldn't be the main priority over like things that are currently affecting us present day, you know, like pollution, overpopulated locations, etc. So it should be a project, not prioritized or over those things, but yeah. So thanks again for answering those questions. Of course, you guys can ask any questions, I'll answer them. Appreciate you guys for the questions. All right, someone asked, do you do body weight exercises or boxing? I mostly lift these days, weights, but I do boxing to keep the skills up, keep the knife sharp. You know, I don't really spar like that anymore, but I keep the knife sharp when I can. Shadow boxing and things of that nature in the bag. So, all right. Mars is already a side project. Yep, it should stay that way. So I agree. It should stay that way. All right. Other good questions here. Superman versus Thor comics. This is what I always say. I've said this many times, but I'll say it again. Problem with comic book characters is that they're composite characters. There's anywhere from tens to hundreds of versions of these characters, so it depends on the specific continuity and the specific, you know, parameters that we're discussing here. That greatly matters. There's obviously versions of Superman that would fuck up mainstream Thor, and there's versions of Thor that would fuck up mainstream Superman. So it really depends on the versions. If you're talking mainstream versus mainstream, you know, in the most recent live action films, at least, it seems Thor has more impressive feats. I mean, in the Snyder Cut Justice League movie, Superman did push back Darkseid, who was arguably a multi-galaxy to universal threat, but Thor did almost one-shot Thanos, who was a universal threat, with the Infinity Gauntlet, mind you. So I might lean towards Thor in the mainstream, you know, live-action universes. But yeah. What are your thoughts on Weeb as a debate in your Discord? I feel bad for the guy, man. I really do. That's all I can say. How many shadows can you beat in a fight at once? I'm omnipotent. Infinite. Every shadow that I see gets leveled. Alright, so someone asked, back to the IRL questions. Will we be able to successfully null the extinction of some species, and is it wise to do so? This is my thoughts on this. This is all headcanon in my own subjective lens, but it would be a very tall task, right, that I don't think we're remotely possible of doing right now. I think it's going to take several centuries, maybe even a couple millennia, for technological innovations to reach that level, where they can negate extinction, where they could reverse the aging process to a very efficient rate. It's going to take a long time. more information, more knowledge has to be acquired through experimentation, through trial and error, through the scientific method. That's my subjective lens thought, you know. So I think it's going to take quite some time, most likely not even our lifetime, to stop some to do something that significant. And this is my thoughts on that. For some reason, I think once we have the power to play God, we're on a very, very thin ice, because unless we know every single fact and every single possibility of what could take place, I think it's dangerous to play God. Playing with lives, playing with the aging process, playing with sentient beings. It's a very dangerous precedent, in my opinion. They're gonna have to tread lightly when that time comes. You never know what could happen, what you could create, what could be the end product of this experimentation. So, thanks again for the $20, brother. Another $20 by Sir Geets. You're the GOAT, brother. Thanks a lot. Let me get that real quick for you and display your king ways to the stream here. Appreciate that, man. You're a GOAT. Give me a second while I put this up. Give me a sec. Alright, I think, here we go. Put it on the screen here real quick. Gotta show these goats off to the world, man. These goat activities taking place here. Goat activities. Alright. So tiny, what the fuck? Give me a second here. Put it right here. Alright, so have you watched Demon Slayer? If you have, do you think that Tanjiro could beat Kid Sasuke that fought Gaara on the exams? Unfortunately, I haven't, but I most certainly will. The next two on my bucket list after Bleach are, respectively, Demon Slayer and Jujutsu Kaisen. So those guys, I'm going to be acquiring knowledge very soon, as soon as I finish Bleach. But thanks for the $20, and if I remember that, I will answer that as soon as I acquire some information, knowledge about Demon Slayer. So thanks again for the question, for the donation, though, brother. Heavy Sasuke versus Gaara. Which Gaara? Depends. I think he beats almost every Gaara until Boruto. Heavy Sasuke versus MS Sasuke. MS Kakashi. Depends on which Kakashi. War Kakashi fucking slaps Heavy. If it's, early Shippuden, Heavy Sasuke probably wins because of the stamina detriment that Kakashi has. How about my man Samurai Jack versus Mifune? I'm not sure of his feats. I used to watch that, Samurai Jack as a kid. If it's anywhere near the gag levels of something like SpongeBob, then I'm guessing Samurai Jack, But if it's more serious tone and it's more logically consistent, then I would have to see feats that suggest that he's in the level of someone like Mifune or Hanzo. And then I'd have to scale their AP and scale their speed, shit like that. Off the top of my head, I'm going to go Samurai Jack because it's a cartoon. Cartoons are inherently gag-like, and they just have some ridiculous feats. What about RCM from movie Eternal? I'm not familiar with that, so I don't know. Can't answer that question. Not familiar with that movie. SpongeBob wipes the floor. Oh, absolutely. I mean, he erased his own reality like it was fucking, like he was having fun at the playground. I mean, yeah, just fucking child's play to him. I love Samurai Jack as a kid. Shit's goated. Yeah, definitely. Goated. Everyone should watch that. SpongeBob's goated. Samurai Jack. Fucking Looney Tunes. Goated. Alright, so some other questions that were pre-live stream here. Alright, some of these are pretty deep. Are we really good people? It's a deep question. So, I think the way I look at it, obviously, is, again, my subjective lens. I think morality has evolved over the last millennia. When we were more, I should say, less developed, morality wasn't so much of an emphasis. Survival was. Think about it. People in tribes thousands of years ago, they didn't care about the moral compass as much as we do now. Do you think that they cared about your pronoun? Or they cared about how you identify? They didn't give a fuck about that. They were trying to survive to the next day. They're trying to hunt down these fucking saber-tooth, or these fucking, these elk, trying to survive, warding off other rivaling tribes trying to kill them and steal their resources. So you really think they cared about that, that subtle of a topic? They didn't give a fuck. Only now in modern day with these first world conveniences do we prioritize and pay attention to these subtle things that are considered important in our moral compass. Like not shaming somebody or your pronoun or how you identify as. That's only something in the last couple, those specific things in the last couple of decades, last decade, maybe if that, as we evolve and live in a more convenient world where we're completely safe from threats that could take away our life. That's what happens. We begin to evolve into this. So it's very interesting to think about. It's very interesting to think about. So as far as the question, are we really good people? I think, this is my thought, I think we have become more morally righteous because we have the convenience of being able to do so. We don't have to worry about, tribe B trying to fucking exterminate us the next day, or people shooting flaming arrows at our fucking huts or anything. We live in a modernly industrialized world now, at least in, Western society. So I think we are better people. There's this inherent compassion that everyone has, despite your affiliation politically. It doesn't matter what side of the political spectrum. I think most people have good intentions. So that I am happy with. But there are some problems that have arisen because of that, such as the death of logic and reasoning. I think logic and reasoning has died, or is dying. It's a dying entity because we care more about appealing to people emotionally than we do about logical and consistent thought. Honestly. So, once again, $20 from the GOAT, Sir Geets. Appreciate you, brother. I got to put these up. That's what a man's got to do what a man's got to do when the GOATs show up. It's a GOAT activity. Give me a second, folks. I'll answer this question. Shout out to you, brother. Appreciate it, man. You're definitely a GOAT. Definitely. Okay, put it up real quick. Keep asking your questions, folks, while I do this. I'll answer them after this question. Give me a second here. Okay. The screen's getting filled up by the GOAT. Alright. Let me put this image up. Put it up here. Boom. Alright, that's kind of big. Let me lower that. Alright, let's read this question real quick from Sir Geets, the GOAT. I have one more question. Do you think that Light Yagami and Madara have similar ideals to stopping bad people and scaring people from doing bad? It's a very good question. So breaking down these guys' mentality and their ideologies, I do think there's some parallels. Right. So let's start with Light Yagami. Light Yagami had this presupposed sense of justice early on in Death Note. Right. Early on, as soon as he got the Death Note, he started to think of justice. He started to think about eliminating the world's worst criminals, which on the surface level seems very ideal and very morally righteous. But I believe power distorted him. Power molded him into this more morally gray character, and eventually I would argue morally black. By the end of it, it wasn't about justice and the better good of humanity. It was about his God complex. It was about doing things his way. See, to him, it was it's my way or the highway. Because of the cat and mouse game that him and L would end up going through, right? I would argue L as well lost sight of what was important. He started to play into this game of where you have two of the greatest minds in the world going at it, and their competitive nature clouded their judgment and distorted their ideology to the point where their ideology wasn't really even justice anymore. It was about being the better man. And I think that really, really messed up Light Yagami's trajectory, as far as what he would be able to accomplish. If he would have stuck to the fucking plan, it would have been very unlikely that L would have caught him. Stay silent, stay quiet, don't play these fucking mind games with L, giving these little breadcrumbs to fucking L to chase you like you're the cat, or you're the mouse and he's the cat that can't catch you. That really distorted his ideology. And as far as his method for stopping bad people and scaring them, that kind of got tossed to the wayside, man. That really wasn't even the goal anymore. He was killing fucking cops. He was killing people that were trying to catch Kira. That went out the window. And I would argue, now going to Madara. Madara was more morally gray than Light Yagami. Here's why. Yes, he had a God complex as well. He wanted to do things his way. That's a parallel between the two. But his intentions arguably stayed more pure, right? He didn't have this cat and mouse game. Yes, he had his rivalry with Hashirama, but the fight was over ideology. It was a clash of ideology. It wasn't a clash of ego or pride. His Madara wanted to create Project Infinite Tsukuyomi later on to make the world a better place. He was aware of the inevitable cycle of war and hate, of war and love, of hate and good feeling. Right? He was familiar with that cycle. He wanted to end the cycle. That never changed, even up until the war arc. Yes, he seemed like a villain. That was still his goal, despite his ego. He does have an ego as well. Not to say he doesn't, but he was definitely more morally gray, and he's definitely someone that can more easily be supported than Light Yagami. If I had to pick who I think was more morally righteous, definitely Madara Uchiha. He's definitely more morally righteous. By the time Light Yagami was towards the end of Death Note, he was, I would argue, what he wanted to stop. He was the evil that he wanted to stop at the beginning. That's what Light Yagami was. And that was the metamorphosis of Light Yagami. Ironically, he became what he wanted to stop. He became this guy that had a god complex that wanted to stop him. It's insane. So I would say Madara Uchiha's ideology is the better one. Definitely by the end of the respective animes, and I would say Light Yagami ended up becoming the villain. He ended up becoming the bad guy. That's why he failed. So, but great question though. Great question. Goat mentality. Are we really right to demonize Tobirama ideologies in the Uchiha? I don't think so. I think people misunderstand Tobirama's intentions. He saw the destruction. He grew up seeing the war-torn world that they lived in between the Senju and the Uchiha. He wanted to avoid that ever happening again. Yes, he was discriminatory towards the Uchiha. That was a flaw. That was a knock on him. He didn't have this sense of, duty to make this equal world where people had equal opportunities, because they didn't. That's a knock on him. He definitely had favoritism for his own clan, but he had good intentions. He wanted to avoid peace. So that is morally righteous. And he had more of an iron fist compared to Hashirama, compared to Naruto, compared to Hiruzen, who was a weak leader. He had an iron fist for it. And he made good things happen. But there was a bad effect to what he did. What was that? The resentment that the Uchiha would grow for the leaf. And what happened? There was almost a coup d'etat. Danzo did what he did by giving Itachi the ultimatum. All this with Tobirama being the catalyst for that. Could he have done a better job? Absolutely. He could have tried to create peace, which is very difficult to do after, I would argue many decades of war, but maybe even centuries between the Senju and the Uchiha. Tobirama could have done a better job. He did some good, he did some bad. He's not an inherently evil person. I disagree with that. Could you say he's racist? Sure, he was racist towards the fucking Uchiha, and that's the knock on him. So, well, shout out to Sir Geets again. Sir Jeets. Okay, my bad. By the way, it's pronounced like Jeets. Sir Jeets. Gotta pronounce the goat's name correctly. Appreciate it, brother. Alright, folks, if you have any other questions, feel free to ask. All are greatly appreciated. And thanks for all the donations, brothers. You're all goats, all of you. Alright. Continuing on while you guys ask questions, there's some more pre-live stream questions here. Some personal ones, too, here. If you guys want me to answer personal ones, let me know. Some guys asked some pretty personal ones here. Do you believe in the third eye? The way I think of the third eye is an eye that allows you to perceive beyond our tangible reality. I think maybe we have that, and I would call that our ability to rationalize. That's our third eye, our ability to perceive beyond what we see in front of us, right? Beyond like seeing material objects. I think that somehow, in some way, is a third eye. Our ability to ask ourselves, why are we here? That's a third eye. The ability to ask, are we the only, organisms that could functionally have a civilization in the universe. That's a third eye. That's the way I look at third eye. You know, it's third eye is a concept. That's the way I look at it, and I think yes, we do. We all do as competent human beings with the ability to make rational arguments and look beyond our observed reality. That's the way I look at it. So, it's a good question though. Thoughts on Hiruzen's overall intelligence? That's a good question. I think he made a. If you mean like his battle IQ, it's off the charts. He's one of the most intelligent, I'd say. I mean, look at what he did against Orochimaru. Very impressive stuff. You know, using his senses when he was in the Bringer of Darkness genjutsu. You know, thinking up, I have to use the Ripper Death Seal because I'm just too old to fucking fight this guy. Too long. Very high IQ. But as far as his intelligence as a leader, I would argue it's very low. It was very low. He didn't have the conviction, or at least the logical ability. Maybe he did. Maybe it was more so of a moral issue. He didn't have the conviction to put his foot down, his fist down, and say we're going to do things this way, right? Like with Danzo, he didn't put Danzo on a leash, so to speak. He didn't keep him in check. And what happened? The Uchiha Massacre. What happened? Sasuke's resentment towards the leaf. What happened? Itachi having to go undercover. That was because of his weak leadership. If he was a good leader, that never would have happened. He would have said, no, we're not doing it that way. We're doing it my way. And he never did that. So his intelligence as a leader, logically, isn't very good. His intelligence as a battle combatant, very high. So, if Kakashi stated no over 1,000 jutsu, why don't you think we see more of them? I think it's more of like a lore statement. That's the way I look at it. It's to establish his lore. And yes, he literally does have it. That's what they say, you have 1,000 jutsu. But it's more to establish his lore. But yeah, I would like to see more jutsus as well. If he really did know 1,000, why didn't he use them? All he uses lightning-based Raikuris and Chidoris. Why doesn't he use all these other jutsus he's learned? You know, and I would argue we saw more of that in part 1, right? When he against Zabuza, he copied his jutsu against Itachi, but later on they kind of got away from that. So I do agree with that. I do agree. All right, folks. Any questions you may have, feel free to ask. You guys asked a lot of pre-live questions, so I appreciate that. Someone says, what's better, Sailor Moon or Breaking Bad? Breaking Bad's goated as shit. If you haven't watched it, you're missing out. That's all I gotta say. Watch it today. After this stream, watch it. It's fucking goated, man. I swear to God. Alright. Any questions you may have, folks, feel free to ask. I'll keep answering these until then. Let's see here. Do you believe in multiverses, parallel universes? I wouldn't say it's impossible. It's a possibility. However, I don't think there's enough empirically speaking, at least to my knowledge. I'm not a fucking physicist, but from what I've seen, there's not enough empirically to imply that. So, how intelligent do you think Kabuto is? I think he's very intelligent. Think about what he's accomplished. Orochimaru dies, right? And Kabuto goes on this scientific venture. He continues Orochimaru's ventures, and he improves on them. He becomes a perfect sage. Orochimaru wasn't able to do that. He gets Orochimaru's abilities. He extrapolates abilities from others and puts them in himself, like being the ability to fight blindly, the ability to use his environment to his advantage. He improved upon Orochimaru's scientific innovations. Kabuto is very underrated. Very underrated. He nearly perfected the Edo Tensei with slight nerfs in each fighter. Right, Tobarama said we're virtually at full power. We're not quite at full power. Why is that? Kabuto improving it. You know, Kabuto improving it. Madara as well said it. So, he's very intelligent. Top of the verse. He's up there, you know. Shippuden 6-pass Naruto versus Vegeta when he first came to Earth. Shippuden 6-pass Naruto. Okay, that's an important distinction. So Vegeta on Earth, he's large planet level, right? He had a power level of 18,000. So keep that in mind. That's probably large planet level, maybe a little bit above that. Now Naruto in 6-pass was able to contend with Deidara. He was able to at least clip Kaguya. So now the question is, can we extrapolate and deduce that there's enough there to sufficiently conclude that Naruto is above large planet level? That's the question. Thinking about it rationally, trying to see all the feats that he's accomplished, I would lean towards Naruto with 6-pass. I would lean towards him. I think he's above large planet level at that point. I wouldn't say solar system because obviously Kaguya was superior, but I think he's somewhere in that range or in that threshold. So we got large planet level, we have solar system. He's in there somewhere, probably closer to large planet level. At bare minimum, lowballing, he's gonna compete with Vegeta if anything. Highballing him, he beats him. So I think it's competitive nonetheless. Zeus versus Thor. Zeus versus Thor. I lean towards Thor as well. Thor sweeps. Alright, so this is a question that someone asked, and I thought it was interesting to discuss. It's about Seth. Someone asked, do you think Seth will retire in 2 years, or do you think he's trolling? So Seth the Programmer is the best anime debater I've ever seen. What's going on, Noah? Thanks for coming in. He's the best debater I've ever seen. One of the best power scalers I've ever seen. And he's one of the all-time greats. As far as him retiring, there's a lot for him to stick around. There's a lot of incentive. He's growing. His lore continues to increase. I would say he might retire. I lean towards him not doing that. I think he's going to stick around longer than that. 2 years is not a long time. I think from Seth's perspective, when he reaches that point, he's going to say, yeah, I'm not ready to retire yet. That's my opinion. Obviously, we don't know what's going through Seth's mind. But I think he's going to stick around longer than that, in my opinion. I hope he does. I don't want to see him go. You know, he's a legend. So, best debater I've seen in the anime community. So, that's a good question. All right, folks, any other questions you may have? Feel free to ask. Okay, someone asked an IRL question here. He's also hilarious in his streams. I agree. I'm stoked for Bleach to come out next month. Hell yeah, I need to finish Bleach before that happens. I have to. I must. Someone asked, what are some ways to get negative or built up emotions out of your system? The gym, combat sports in general. That's probably the best way, man, as a man, to release negative, pent-up aggression. You know, you allow your primal side to come out. You know, punching a bag, punching somebody in the ring, violently throwing weight around. It's the best way. It's the best way, my opinion. It's worked for me many times. What's the best age to start a family? By the way, folks, hit the like button if you haven't already. Gets us up in the algorithm. It's greatly appreciated. Keeps the army building. Thanks for all the new subs, new members that have joined. If you're not a member already, think about it. I put very exclusive content there. So, yeah. Best age to start a family. As a man, it's different between men and women from my perspective. As a man, probably late 20s, early 30s. The key is when you're financially set, you know, you're near your prime as a man, you're not struggling financially, you're living comfortably, and you find the right woman. That's the key. Usually that happens around late 20s, early 30s for a man. So I would say around that range is a good range. Unless you're living very lavishly by 23, 24, go ahead. You know, there's nothing stopping you. But what games do you play these days, Jay? These days, a lot of COD, GTA I enjoy, Minecraft sometimes for fun, for old time's sake. God of War, waiting for the new one to come out, can't wait for that. What else do I play? I don't play that often these days, but I even play Fall Guys. Shit's goated this summer, so it's fun to play. Alright, so continuing on. Continue to ask your questions, folks. And all donations. Thanks again for all the donations, folks. You guys are fucking goated for real. Someone asked, grocery shopping or outside food? Huh, that's a good question. Definitely grocery shopping. You know what's in the food. At least the higher probability you know what's in the food you're eating. You're cooking it yourself. Grocery food is inherently more healthy. There's less GMOs, especially if you go organic. It is more expensive, to be fair, but it guarantees healthy living. So definitely grocery shopping, and it's fucking cheaper, so it saves money for your bank account. Mega Man, Star Force versus Silver Surfer. I remember Mega Man when I was a kid, but I'm not too familiar with him. Let me see. Mega Man, Star Force. see. Let's look at the Versus Wiki about that. Then I can make an assessment. Where does he scale? According to Versus Wiki, anyway. Give me a second, folks. Holy shit. Fuck. Fucking ads popping up. I just saw it and disappeared. Okay. Trying to see. So he can go all the way up to solar system level. Okay. Solar system class, striking strength, speed, massively faster than light, lifting strength, multi-stellar. Solar system AP. Okay, so it'll come down to what version of Silver Surfer. If he has even a fraction of Galactus' cosmic energy, then he probably beats Silver Surfer, Mega Man, because he's fucking. At that point he's universal. So, but there's probably versions of Silver Surfer that Mega Man would beat, most definitely, especially like mainstream Silver Surfer. Alright, folks, continue to ask questions while I see these other ones. Actually, might as well state this now. A couple of you guys asked me the call-in show. Most likely next week, if I can set that up with my co-hosts. That's probably when I'll do the next call-in show. And hopefully more folks come in. Who knows, man? If we're lucky, someone will talk shit. And I'll have to roast somebody. But yeah, the next call-in show will probably be next week. You guys have a chance to actually discuss with us and discuss some anime, power scaling, whatever. So probably next week, more than likely. I'll let you guys know for sure soon. You gotta talk to the squad. But yeah, any good movies or documentaries you would recommend? That's a good question. Good movies. Most MCU movies, besides the newer ones, like the ones that are ass. Documentaries. It depends on what you want to look for. If you want to look for, really perceived greatness, The Last Dance is a good documentary. Crime, there's a lot of good crime documentaries out there. There's all kinds of good stuff out there these days. We're living in a booming era of visual film, But recently, me personally, I've been watching, obviously, Bleach. I've been watching a lot of, what else? Narcos. Narcos is goated. Narcos Mexico's goated. It really gives you a perspective on the cartel, which is definitely an entity within, the Latin nations. It's very interesting. Cartel is an interesting topic. It really is. They have more power than you think, in the real world, not just in Narcos. They have a lot of power. So Narcos gives you a perspective on that. I watched Cobra Kai because, I'm a Karate Kid fan. Yeah. Cartel is an interesting entity. They really are like the ISIS version of the Latin realm, They're not religious, but they have some fundamentalist values that they follow, They want to continue this enterprise that they have, and they have the interesting thing about the cartel is that they have this distorted version of justice. They have like this distorted self-righteousness. And what's funny is, if you go to those nations, a lot of these civilians look up to them when they shouldn't. It's very unfortunate. They look up to these cartel members as gods, and in reality, they're evil. They're the reason why people overdose. They're the reason why there's fucking trafficking and all this other bullshit that they cause. But they have this distorted sense of self-righteousness that is very upsetting. Like, you guys have no reason to feel morally righteous about yourself. You're fucking scum, all of you. So it's an interesting entity. They have a lot of power. They can move, they can dictate governmental leadership. They can change an election. They can shut down a city. It's fucking crazy. And Narcos displays that beautifully. It's really well done. Pablo Escobar, great portrayal. So highly recommend that show if you're into that. If you want to learn more about what a criminal enterprise is like, watch that. All right, folks, continue on with the questions. Someone has thoughts on CBD vapes. Vapes are fucking stupid. They're very stupid. Smoking is stupid in general. I'm not gonna lie. It hurts. It's detrimental to your health. First of all, if you want CBD, get the extract, the pure CBD product. That's fine. That's good for you. It has very good healing properties, very good elements to it. But don't fucking smoke weed, smoke cigarettes and vapes. Vapes are arguably worse than fucking cigarettes. So stick to the natural extracts that we know empirically only have good benefits for you. You know, live cleanly. So, all right, keep asking questions, folks, if you have any. There's still more questions here to answer while you guys do that. All right, why do people have vices like bad relationships, dependence on weed, sex, porn, etc.? This is a good question. So, this is my thoughts on that. Human beings are instinctually, right, individuals that cling to things or people that bring some sense of gratification, despite the after effects, right? They cling to drugs. They cling to toxic relationships. Why? Because they get some sense of instant gratification, and their body becomes conditioned to want that more and more and more and more. Right? So that's a reason why. So humans inherently will have a bad reaction to events and people that take away these things, right? Look at the withdrawal symptoms from someone that can't no longer do heroin. Their body goes through a whole fucking process. If you want to talk the intrinsic bad reactions, when a girl breaks up with you, what the fuck happens? You're fucking broken, especially if you've been with her for a long time, at least emotionally. That is the reason why betrayal, right, I think is an important concept to understand as a human being. Betrayal is one of the worst things humans can experience, right? Because our minds, when it comes to let's talk about people, not drugs. When we talk about people that you end up caring about, your mind paints this picture of them, right? Trustworthy. They're the epitome of trust and companionship and fellowship, whatever the case may be. And when that person goes against that image, your mind reacts accordingly, and it doesn't react well. You know, it sees a threat that it wasn't perceived as a threat. You've been misguided. You've been tricked. And that's why your mind, and I guess you could say, you know, the rest of you feels that. You know, that's why relationships end badly for a lot of men, because they put all their eggs in one basket on one bitch, and the bitch doesn't really even care about them like that. You know, so you got to be careful and cautious as a man, and a woman too. You don't want to date so no loser. So very important to keep in mind. That's why we have vices, you know. And when it comes to addiction, when it comes to things that are like porn, sex, and drugs, that's just discipline. You know, don't ever even get involved in it. Stop it immediately if you already have. Harder said than done, especially if it's drugs. You're probably gonna have to get help, you know. But yeah, it's an interesting question. We are creatures that lust for immediate gratification. That's why. So, all right, folks. Are there any other questions? Feel free to ask here. I'll keep answering these until then. All right. This has to do with technology. Thoughts on iOS 16? I think it's dope. It's a good template for the fast-paced rate of technological innovation. I think it's like a good illumination of that. iOS quickly developing. It like allows us to see the quick and rapid pace of technological advancement. You know, it's a beautiful thing, and you really got to thank these guys that create these devices that have so much power in them. But you guys didn't know, computers used to be ancient. They used to be rudimentary. They weren't capable of doing certain things like memory storage, and I don't want to get too into the professional jargon, but there was a lot of things computers couldn't do back in the day. But now, you know, these microchips, when put in a device, are capable of everything. Everything. It's fucking ridiculous. It's a ridiculously impressive feat. So, it's fucking insane. You think gaming will peak once you can feel what's in the game, like some SAO type shit, or can it go beyond that? I think it will peak when virtual reality has been properly calibrated to the point where we feel what's happening, we smell what's happening, our senses are being stimulated because of the technological innovations that have been created. So yeah, I do think there's gonna be a point where we're in the fucking game. They'll probably want to avoid us feeling pain because that would be tough for everyone. You know, if we actually feel the pain that the characters are feeling. I don't know if we'll ever get to that point. That would be tough to implement, I feel like, if you think about it rationally. Like machine learning, you know, neural networks, stuff like that. I think we're a long ways from that, though. But yeah, it's going to peak around there. And that's just what we can imagine. Who knows what's going to fucking happen? Maybe we can go inside the fucking game. I don't know. Maybe one day. That's probably many centuries from now, to be honest. Prime Kimimaro versus Sasori. Again, Kimimaro is tough to gauge. You got to kind of see hypothetically what Prime Kimimaro would be capable of. We did see him in the war arc. We saw him, you know, compete with KCM with Naruto or whatever. If we take that as hyper literal and revere that feat, then probably Kimimaro. But if we take that as like a plot device for these Edos, I lean towards Sasori. You know, he is Biju level. Any Akatsuki member has to be at least Biju level. So, yeah. Thoughts on Warzone 2? I haven't tried it yet. I've seen some gameplay. It looks promising. I definitely gotta check out the new COD, most definitely, and update my consoles as well. I don't think I'll ever get into VR at that point. Like, can you imagine playing a fighting game in VR? Exactly. Yeah, it's tough to kind of relay that into real time in real life. It's the experts will figure it out. I'm sure they always do. You know, I guarantee 30 years ago, if you ask somebody, do you think we'll ever be able to see each other through a screen thousands of miles away? They probably would be like, fuck no. Look at us now. You know, so I think they'll figure it out. So the things that don't seem achievable are most certainly achievable. You know, with time. What's going on, Louis? Thanks for coming in. What's going on, brother? Been answering some questions. Here's some other questions. Feel free to keep asking, folks, while I answer more. Okay. Are you going to get the AirPods Pro 2? No, I don't like the design, like the plastic tip. I feel like they fall out easily, especially when you're working out. So probably not. They got to change the design, in my opinion. Or make a certain variation where you can keep it in your ears, you know? They always fall out and shit. So you'll think we'll colonize Mars before every part of the planet gets access to the internet? It's a good question. You got to kind of determine, deduce the rates of how those things are progressing, right? So Mars, I think we're really far away from that. Very, very far away. And I think in theory, it's easier to give the globe in scale internet than colonizing Mars. There's a lot of unknown there. The only thing we got to do for the rest of the world is simply put, you know, Wi-Fi networks in other parts of the world. That's all we simply need to do. That just takes effort. It's not something that we have to learn how to do because we know how to do it. You know, we need the right infrastructure, the right money towards it. But Mars, there's so much unknown still. So I probably the latter. So thoughts on Kanye West as an artist? He is very talented. One of the greatest talents in our generation, obviously. And I think, in some weird way, ironically, his mind is the reason why he is so talented and unique. You know, yes, he has mental illness. He probably has bipolar disorder, but for some reason, that adds to his greatness. And it's like the craziness adds to his talents. It's very bizarre. He's one of those guys. A bizarre and crazy talent, as I would describe Kanye. So that's a good question, though. He's a very interesting fella. So someone asked, is everything truly temporary? It's a good question. It's a deep question. Your emotions, falling in deep with a girl, etc. I would say yes, in our own subjective lens. Time passes, and what I would say, you know, being imperfect beings, is that change is inevitable, right? And events that take place. So change is an inevitable event that takes place since, due to existing an imperfect reality, results in a dynamic aspect to it. Things are always changing, even subtly, you know. So change is inevitable. So everything is truly temporary, at least in our own tangible reality it is. You know, everything is. And that should put some things into perspective as far as, you know, a lot of things. Things are temporary. That's the way the world works. You know, we take things for granted sometimes. Time goes on. You know, the sun sets and the sun rises every day. Time continues indefinitely. That's time, at least in an imperfect world. So, all right. Keep asking questions, folks. And hit the like button, by the way, folks, if you haven't already. Gets us up in the algorithm. A couple of live streams I've hit 30 plus likes. Thanks for all the likes. Because and because of that, people see the videos more. So thank you to all for that. Appreciate it. You really think Sneeko really went? Shout out to Sneeko, by the way. Really went on the Red Pill stuff just because he got cucked at one point, or would he have to come into naturally based on his content before the pandemic? So let's read that one more time. You think Sneeko really went in on the Red Pill stuff just because he got cucked at one point, or would he have come to it naturally based on his content before the pandemic? Obviously, we don't know his his dating history, but it's definitely a possibility that the former was a prerequisite for him getting into the community. But I do think his type of content naturally led him to these conclusions as well. Interviewing women, shit like that. You start to learn their nature anyway, to some extent. So I would say the former is definitely possible, but the latter is definite. That was definitely a factor that played into it. Sneeko, the reason I like Sneeko is that he's open-minded. He knows that he's not this perfect, knowledgeable being. He has a lot to learn, So do we all. He looks to his mentors, Tate, the roommates, Bradley Martin. Shout out to him too. He's on his podcast. I saw that. Fresh and Fit. These guys have more experience, and Sneeko is aware of that. And he's willing to change his ideology. He's willing to change certain aspects of it and improve. A lot of guys, in not just this community, the anime community, but at large, aren't willing to change. They will die on that hill, and that's a dangerous precedent. You shouldn't be that kind of person. You should be malleable to some extent. I'm not saying compromise and become, go from one extreme to the other, because that's pussy shit, but you should be able to be malleable to some extent. Obviously, if someone gives you a new piece of information and they want you to take that as true and holy, you gotta look at it logically and say, does this make sense? Don't just simply flip switch, but you gotta be malleable to some extent. Everyone should. Could a god of destruction fuse with an angel despite having a different type of ki? That's actually a very interesting question. Then you gotta look at Vegeta and Goku. They have different kinds of ki, I guess you could say. It seems like Ultra Ego is correlated to God of Destruction, and Ultra Instinct is more correlated to angels. I think it's possible. I think so. I don't think you have to have the same specific ki. Maybe it'll create some new product. It's a very interesting question, though. I would say I would speculate. Right? Obviously, it's not absolute. I would say yes, probably. So that's a good question, though. I never thought of that. Never thought of it. So, all right. Keep asking questions, folks, if you have any. Appreciate it. So a couple others that you guys asked. Appreciate all the questions, by the way. So best first date ideas. We're already on this red pill tangent. Why not continue? So, honestly, the best date is the easiest date. Simple. Keep it simple. Simple dates, such as a walk on the beach, a coffee date, or something that will push both parties to engage in conversation, where she could see what you bring to the table, where you see what she is, where you could kind of extrapolate based off her body language and her statements. Is she into me? Is she a thought? Is she for the streets? Does she just want my money? Etc. Interaction is the only way to extrapolate that. Being at a fucking movie theater for 3 hours ain't gonna allow you to do that shit. Or being at a loud ass concert where everyone's fucking yelling at the top of their lungs is not gonna help you do that shit. Not the best place to meet a girl for the first time. Somewhere calm, somewhere peaceful. You guys can talk. You guys can really connect, and you can vet her out. She'll vet you out. That's the best. Not expensive, because she'll get the wrong impression. Yeah, you might think, oh, I'm flexing. I'm going to take her to fucking Nobu or some other expensive-ass restaurant. No. Your social proof is enough. If you have a nice car, that's enough. If you have, jewelry or whatever, that's enough. You don't have to take her to a fucking restaurant that's $500 for a meal. So keep that in mind. So keep it simple. Be concise. So, Jake Paul versus Anderson Silva. Interesting matchup. Anderson Silva's skills are steadily declining. Why? Because he's getting older. Obviously, that technique will always be there for the rest of his life, but he is 47 years old. That is very old. Yes, he beat Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., a world-class champion at one point. The son of the legend, Julio Cesar Chavez Sr., one of the greatest of all time. I still think it's going to be competitive. I really got to kind of see how Anderson looks early on in the first couple rounds to kind of deduce what is he still capable of. Is he still somewhat explosive? Does he still have power? Does he still have a chin? Those are all things that are going to have to be taken into consideration. These questions we can't answer till the day of. Jake Paul's in his prime. His life is fucking boxing right now. That's very, very significant. So I'm very interested. I still actually lean towards Silva because he beat Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. Now, to be fair, Jr. is a fucking joke to the sport. He's a fucking disgrace to his father. He's a fucking joke. Ever since he lost to Canelo, he's been a fucking disgrace. I'm not going to lie. So maybe that wasn't prime Jr., right? That's fair. That's a fair argument. But either way, still world class. At one point, a world class combatant. So because of that, I lean towards Silva. Did you hear that a Senate hearing caught onto Sneeko and Nick Fuentes? Shit's crazy. They're making waves, man. Sneeko and Nick Fuentes and Tate, they're making fucking waves, and I'm here for it. You know, I really am. I hope Silva wins. Me too. I like Jake, but yeah, if Silva wins, that will end this bullshit. You know, that will end this bullshit of YouTubers thinking that they can cross that line and fight world-class opponents. It's never gonna happen. Never. All right, folks. How long have we been going on? Probably stay about 10 more minutes or so. Unless someone donates a good amount, I'll stay a little longer. Again, thanks for all the donations. You guys are all goated. And all the likes, all the questions. None of this would be possible without you folks, so thank you. But continuing on. Right. Someone asked Toyota or Honda. I prefer Honda. I prefer Toyota, but have Honda. I think either or a great starting car if you're getting your first or second car. Very reliable, very affordable. So I think it's either or. Depends on your preference. So, and I think I answered all the pre-live questions. I believe that is all. Yeah. So if you folks have any questions, feel free to ask. Stay around a little longer. It's a good variation. You know, I like the melting pot that we have. Anime, sports, real shit. You know, this is a good variety that stays in place. So, and like I said, most likely next week we'll have a call-in show, so it'll be more interactive, and hopefully more people come in. Maybe if we're lucky, some shit talker will come in, and I could do my thing. But yeah. See the other questions here. All right, folks. Any questions you may have, feel free. Any debates you got going on in the Discord? I should be debating this Thursday on a very interesting topic. If you want to know more, join the Discord. It is an event that has been scheduled, and it should be very controversial. Probably gonna get people talking shit because of my logical and very valid stance on the topic. It's one that's been highly discussed in the YouTube community at large. So. And I am debating a female, an actual female, that has the guts to debate me. Shout out to her. She has the actual guts to do it. Not a lot do. Most of them will just talk shit and throw ad hominem attacks, and that'll be the end of it. But she's willing to actually debate it. You know. So that should be interesting. I did a debate on your Discord. Would you mind reviewing it and giving me tips, perhaps? Possibly, yeah, and you're a member, so I appreciate that. If I get a chance, I might do that. Just hit me up on Discord. If I'm able to get around to it, I can give some tips. So I'll say maybe, yeah. But yeah, I do have a debate coming soon. It's going to be live in the Discord. I'll post the recording on the channel, of course. Should be interesting. Appreciate you as well. Always, brother. I'll give you some chat as well. Appreciate that, brother, for sure. Help people improve. Yeah, for sure. All right, folks. A couple more questions, and I shall depart. This is a W stream. All the donations, all the interaction. If you want special perks, again, think about becoming a member, and you'll get exclusive member-only videos I'm never gonna post on the channel because of the controversy. At least not on, publicly. So more raw and unfiltered there. I'll tell you that. So think about it. A couple more questions though, folks. If you guys have any, go ahead. $20 again from one of the goats. Appreciate it, brother. Evangelist, thanks again, man. Thanks again. Let me go ahead and clip it because that's what I have to do for the goats. Give me a second here, folks. I'll stay a little longer because of that. You know what? Because of that goat, I'm gonna stay a little longer. Appreciate you, Evangelos. Thanks for the $20, brother. Let's see here. Let me go ahead and put it in screen. Give me a second here. Give me a second, folks, while I do that. Where are you? Here you are. Alright, put it right here. Shout out to you again, brother. Let's read it. Here's one I got for you, going to be very intriguing. Wolverine versus a leopard. The leopard being bigger wouldn't even make a difference, since the Wolverine takes on bears for their own kills. Well, I guess you got to compare feats here, right? It seems, from my subjective lens, that the Wolverine is more genetically predisposed for battle. A leopard seems more of like a solitary predator that's more designed to kill vulnerable prey, right? So it seems the Wolverine would have the advantage. Let's look at the specifics, though. I gotta do that for you because you're goated and you actually donated. So give me a second here. Let's break this down. All right, so let me look at the intangibles here. A leopard, okay. Leopards have, compared to other wildcats, relatively short legs, long body. Okay. Yeah, it is similar in appearance, but has a smaller, lighter physique. Okay. All right. They can run up to 36 miles an hour. Okay. Not that that's going to help unless they're evading the Wolverine. Going to the Wolverine, the largest terrestrial species of the weasel family. Okay. Stocky. Interesting. 55. The Wolverine can weigh up to 55 pounds. Wow, interesting. It resembles a small bear with a long tail. Okay, giving rise to the use of skunk bear to describe the animal. It seems from what I can extrapolate, I would lean towards the Wolverine. They seem more predisposed for battle, and they're not that small. They're probably not as much smaller than the fucking leopard, and they're just more predisposed for battle. You know, more predisposed for battle. The leopard does have a significant bite force. Yeah, so I think a win con for the leopard would be if it theoretically could get the neck, or a vital, and be able to successfully cling on. It might make the Wolverine bleed out, but I think in most cases the Wolverine would just overwhelm it, probably, from what I can extrapolate, and the feats that Wolverines can accomplish. It's most likely. That's a very good contentious matchup, though. And leopards are smaller than even jaguars. Yeah, they're gonna have a problem with a Wolverine if it can take down bigger animals, and bears. I mean, shit, those things are something else. Who do you think is better, Muhammad Ali or Bruce Lee? Muhammad Ali is a world-class boxer. Bruce Lee was simply just not to talk shit, he's a legend. He's a pioneer of martial arts. He was more so of a lore character, if you want to talk anime terms. Bruce Lee doesn't have any real accolades as far as a world-class level. He has the lore, but he doesn't have the accolades that Muhammad Ali does. You never see Bruce Lee taking on a world-class opponent that's not in a movie. So Muhammad Ali is better. So, in terms of fighting, of course. What's your favorite animal, Jay? It's a good question. Probably a couple options. A lion, of course, being king of the jungle. Wolves, I like wolves because they have that very interesting dynamic with the pack, which I think us humans should try to extrapolate some lessons from that. I mean, lions do too. Probably either a lion or a wolf, most likely. I think they're, what they prioritize can be paralleled by us somehow. The mentality more so than just their aesthetic. I mean, obviously aesthetically they look really cool. The lions with the mane and the wolves with the yellow eyes and the darkness. Yeah, so those two. There's a lot to learn from them, I guess you could say, intrinsically. All right, folks, a few more questions because of the GOAT that donated 20. Your GOAT. Okay. Wolf versus hyena. Interesting one. I believe hyenas have some of the most powerful bite force, if I'm not mistaken. Let's look at their bite force here. Let me look it up real quick. Holy shit. Okay, so they blow wolves out of the water. They're about 2.5 times more powerful in bite. Wolves have an average bite force of 406 psi. Some of the most fearsome hyenas have 1100 psi. That's damn near, yeah, that's a lot more. One-on-one is probably the fucking hyena. Let me look at the size here. So we have average weight of 90 to 190 for the hyena. What about... Wait. I think it's comparing the two, actually. Never mind. Wolf size. Because that matters as well. Okay, so they can weigh anywhere from 66 or 180 pounds if it's a male adult. What about hyenas? Okay, so they're very relative in size. So the hyena would probably fuck it up. One-on-one? Yes. Is there anyone from Naruto or Boruto that could beat Nappa? Several. Ishiki, adult Naruto, adult Sasuke, probably Kaguya. I'm sure Deidara is a little bit more contentious. I don't know where I would put him. I don't know if he's large planet level quite. Maybe three-eyed Madara. Who else? Jubito versus Nappa would be very contentious. I'm not sure how that would go. But top tier guys in Boruto are fucking up Nappa. Delta, Ida, Damon, Code, Boruto with being 80% plus Otsutsuki, Kawaki with Ishiki's powers. Those guys would fuck Nappa up. Yeah, most definitely would. Six pass Madara versus Kinchiki, probably. I don't think Madara reaches that level, like true Otsutsuki level. I don't think so. Do you think Nagato would have learned to use Limbo clones? Maybe if he trained under Madara, he would have. Let's say theoretically in some alternate universe, Madara's around to teach Nagato these abilities. But then again, he would have the Rinnegan though, so I don't know how that would work. He would need to be around an experienced Rinnegan user, and theoretically, yeah, he could have. I don't think on his own, unless he learned on his own somehow. But I think his crippling body really limited his development somehow, I'd argue. Alright, folks. I'm going to stick around longer because of the goats, man. Donations, stay a little longer. You guys are goated. Appreciate it. So feel free to ask more questions, folks. I'll be here a little while longer. Goated stream, for sure. Alright. I believe I've answered all my pre-live questions. I think I have, actually. That's how you know this is goated. Yeah, but Animal Kingdom versus matchups are very interesting. Most definitely. When will you do a 24-hour stream? I would need a considerable donation to do that, and I would do it. It'd have to be considerable. Considerably large. Maybe as a 100 episode special or something, And I would do it. Actually, deadass, I'd be here for 24 hours. Just shooting the shit. That would be an event. Deadass. Like 1 million. If I had to put a number on it, Probably 500, maybe more. 500, around 500, 600 bucks. I might do 24 hours. I would set a day to do it. I'm not Seth. I'm not gonna ask for 10K. You know, I know he asked like 30K and I'll do this. But he has a bigger audience too. I gotta be real with myself. I'm not on that level yet. So like 500 bucks, 600 bucks, 24-hour stream. Yeah, he would ask 24-hour stream. Seth would ask for like 20 bands, but he has the right to do so. I mean, he has hundreds of thousands of people, you know, that subscribe to him, so he earned that right to ask. Shout out to Seth too. You know, he's getting that bag, so stud. Next video coming out. Like I said, I'll let you guys know because it's been pretty goated. My next video will be with my good friend of mine. You guys have seen him on the Sakura video. We're trying to extrapolate the right information for Gohan Beast versus Vegeta. Not Vegeta, excuse me. Gohan Beast versus Black Frieza. That's the next video coming out. Hopefully, we have the information straight. We have the information scripted, and it's accurately. You know, we're gonna accurately source it out and see if it's consistent, if it's canonical, at least close to canonical. We got to make everything perfectly done because we don't want to give a shitty interpretation if we don't have the facts straight, you know. So probably Gohan Beast versus Black Frieza. How tall are you? 6 foot. 6 foot. Unfortunately, I'm not 6'3" like Seth. So, or 6'2", 6'3", whatever his height is. But at least I'm 6 foot. It'd be cool to be 6'3" or 6'2". It'd be nice though. Get a couple more inches added, you know. Alright, folks. A few more questions here. Stick a little longer because of the goats on here donating. CP3 6 foot. Hey, shout out to CP3, man. Legend. He needs a ring. I was really hoping he would have won a ring the last couple of years, you know. Him and the Suns have gotten very close. But yeah, he is 6 foot. I think Kyrie Irving's... No, he might be a little bit taller than 6. He's like 6'1", 6'2". Steph Curry's 6'3". AI was 6 foot, not mistaken. 6'1", 6 foot. Legend. For you guys that didn't know, the shortest player in history, I think, was Muggsy Bogues. He was 5'3". Stud. Do you prefer tall girls or short? Oh, short girls for sure, man. I don't want to go like eye level. Fuck that. 6 foot chick. They have to be really hot. Deadass. For me personally, my preference is the short is better. Like a good height for me is like 5'4", 5'5" chick. You know, a bad bitch is like 5'5", 5'4" is perfect. You know, super short's kind of weird. Like fucking 4'11". Like I feel like I'm fucking talking to a kid. I can't even take that serious. Low key. I will. I mean, they're, you know, my age, sure, but I would prefer like 5'4", 5'5". Alright, folks. But yeah, I definitely don't prefer tall chicks. Most definitely not. I'm the opposite. I like girls that are taller and a bit muscular. Here's what I'll say about muscular. I like a thick girl. You know, a thick chick, like a fit chick with like a nice lower body is a bad bitch, you know. I'm an ass man, so yeah. That's all I'll say about that before I get too specific, which is weird. But let's see here. But as far as tall, yeah, I don't. It's not my thing. You know, it depends from guy to guy. Nothing wrong with that. It's your preference, you know. Alright, folks. Any other questions, folks? I'll be around for a few more minutes here. I owe that much to the studs out here, the goats out here donating. Would you prefer a girl way overweight or way underweight? Oh shit, that's a good question. Obviously neither one is ideal, and I would never actually look either one's way in the real world. But if I had to choose, probably underweight. I feel like that would be easier to help fix. You know, like I help the girl eat more, get in the gym. Girl that's fat. Here's the truth: the girl that's fat comes with certain traits. They're probably inherently lazy, inherently, inherently more stubborn because they don't want to lose the weight. And there's a good chance that they fucking don't want to lose the weight. They're like, oh, I love my curves. Like, oh, bitch, get the fuck out of here. I'm not dealing with a fat bitch. So, a girl that's underweight, maybe she has, like, more than likely, statistically speaking, she probably has some, you know, some image issues. And I'll be like, no, you look, eat more. You're gonna look better. You're gonna get an ass, all this shit. So, probably the underweight chick. Would you ever react to Chuck's videos? Yeah, I might do that soon. I've been thinking about Chuck's videos. He's goated. I definitely want to check out his content. He has some good stuff. And I want to react to more Carthu's Dojo as well. I like his stuff as well. Been a lot of Seth content, and I've been making my own scripts too for Dragon Ball content that's gonna coming soon as well. So I've been kind of focused on that. Of course, focus on my own other ventures outside of YouTube as well. But yeah, I definitely want to react to that. I'll definitely get to that. And one more time, folks, make sure to hit the like button. Gets us up in the algorithm and gets more eyeballs on us. Keeps the army growing. Makes these more interactive as well. Seth making a comeback on content, maybe. Yeah, it definitely seems like a lot of heat. I really love the videos he did on. I really love the videos that he did on Dragon Ball. Gohan Beast. I think he gave a very good analysis on all those videos. But, the hypothetical discussion of true Ultra Instinct Vegeta was very well done. I really liked it. I really enjoyed it. I think he gave some great takes. Couldn't have said it better myself. So, do you have knowledge about ancient history? I took a couple classes. From what I remember, we definitely extract a lot from ancient history. The most familiar I'm with is I took a class on, I think, is Islamic history, all the way back in the day with ancient civilizations like Muhammad's time. What else? The Greek societies. Those are the ones I'm most familiar with currently, and all the lessons that we've extrapolated from them. Yeah. Thanks again, GA. Shout out to you guys. Thanks for being shout out to you for being a member. Shout out to all the members. Think about becoming a member, folks. You get more perks, become a mod, things like that. Carthu's base. I just wish he was a little less restrained in his language. He's hilarious. Have you seen him talk with? Yeah, he seems very uptight. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it's okay to let loose, man. This is the anime community. You're not fucking, you're not in a fucking professional setting. If you're making a scripted video, okay, but chill out. What do you think the next arc in the DBS manga will be about? What I would like it to be about is exploring Black Frieza's potential, exploring what he can bring to the table, getting more specific on what he really is capable of, and I want to see Vegeta and Goku's reaction to being one-shotted. Yeah, there's some things I hope we get some light into. Like we need more answers, and I think that's the point. Toriyama wants us to be on the edge of our seats, Toriyama and writers. So hopefully it's something of that note, and maybe we'll learn new things from Whis or Beerus or something. You think Goten and Trunks will ever be relevant again? I think in due time, eventually Toriyama will get to that. I think he's kind of focused on, obviously the main things that have took place in the Dragon Ball universe. Gohan and Frieza are of note right now, the priority. I hope that something, maybe an arc, maybe a significant moment happens for them in the future. I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon, in my opinion, based on the way Toriyama writes. He focuses on sections, right? And he prioritizes these characters to build them in terms of narrative, in terms of power. So that's the case right now. But I do think in the future, I don't see why he wouldn't make them relevant again, like he did with Gohan. Made him someone relevant. He wasn't fucking just some guy in the tournament of power. That's all he really was. So, yeah. He's patient. I think Toriyama's a patient man. Takes his time. All right, folks. About 5 more minutes, unless another donation appears. All you guys are goated once again for the donations. Greatly appreciated. But yes, I do plan on finishing Bleach, so I can really give some insightful takes on that as well. I gotta finish that. And then get to Jujutsu Kaisen. I definitely want to learn more about Gojo. I'm very intrigued by him already. I don't even know anything about him yet, so he seems very polarizing. Aesthetically, lore-wise, his abilities, the perception manipulation seems very interesting to me. So the idea of infinity and all this other shit that's in it. Do you think Granola would join the next tournament of power? That would be an interesting aspect to it if that took place. He is like a top tier guy, and if he continues to evolve, I don't see why not. Maybe he could be another addition to the Tournament of Power. I don't see why not. I kind of hope Boo gets in there. What about Boo? Whatever happened to Boo? I don't know what happened to him either. But yeah, I would say it's a possibility. It's a possibility. It seems Toriyama's obviously more focused on the Z fighters being in the tournaments and stuff like that, but I wouldn't mind some villains joining the fray, or perceived villains currently. How strong do you think Beerus is? The thing with Beerus, it's very ambiguous, right? We get the statement in the manga that Vegito is stronger than Beerus when he fought Fused Zamasu. It seemed that he surpassed or was on relative standing with Beerus. If we take that, then the thing is, it's still left up to the writer's interpretation, I feel like. And in comparing the anime to the manga, it's not even consistent, So that's why people argue whether the anime is canonical or not. They argue if the new Dragon Ball movie is canonical or not, because these differences that are apparent to us, they're probably not apparent to the casual, but when you're really in the literature, you're going to notice these differences. Right now in the manga, it's possible, I would say it's possible, that Black Frieza could contend with Beerus. If we consider what was said in the Goku Black arc, then fucking Beerus is getting smashed. I mean, if Vegito was relative to fucking Beerus, then he's getting smashed up by Black Frieza. So yeah, that's something to take into account. I think the direction Dragon Ball is going is starting to be a little bit much. It's not as rich in lore as it used to be. It's more so who's getting stronger now. That's a good point. That's a good point. It's like about one-upping each other. That seems to be the emphasis right now. One-upping the next guy. And not really building the character narratively speaking. I can see where you're coming from with that. That's a good observation. Me being a power scaling junkie, I fucking love it, but I see where you're coming from. That is true. That is true. The lack of lore, right? The lack of appeal to emotion. So, I mean, that's always been the case with Dragon Ball. Yeah, Dragon Ball is inherently a power scaling based narrative, and yes, we get some very emotionally appealing moments, right? Maybe like Majin Vegeta is one of the most appealing moments. That's what really made us fall in love with the character. Goku helping his son defeat Cell. What other moments? Vegito whipping Boo's ass. That built a shitload of lore for Vegito. He looked like a fucking god there, whipping Boo's ass and mentally just destroying him. That was amazing as far as lore is concerned. But yeah, we need more of those moments. Maybe this should slow down a little bit. Gohan, Goku, Vegeta, Frieza, Boo, Broly, Ender 17, Granola, Piccolo, and I can't think of a last OP character for the Tournament of Power. Anyone good for the last slot? Let's see. If they give some plot device amp to Boo, maybe Boo. Who else? I'm trying to think here as well. Yeah, that's all I can really think of as well. Boo, if they somehow make him relevant again. Maybe Goten's and Trunks, if they do something for them. If they help them get a respectable amount of power, then they'll be relevant in the Tournament of Power. If they do that before that takes place. We'll see. We'll see. Alright, folks, about 2 or 3 more questions, and I shall depart. Unless there's a donation, then I'll stay a little longer. This was a good stream, for sure. Alright, how strong do you think Frieza's dad was if the statements from Namek Saga Frieza were true about him getting beat by his dad in his final form? Meanwhile, his dad seems to be in his second form. Well, with me not knowing the exact multiplier, that would mean that his father, obviously stronger than him. To what extent? It seems like the jump in power is quite significant from version 1 from version 2 to version 3. So if we presuppose that his form changing has a similar rate of increase, then it would be quite significant um, from second form to final form. Because look at the jump in power that Frieza had in the Saiyan saga. I mean, excuse me, on Namek. When he was on Namek, he had quite the jump in power. From dealing with Piccolo to fucking up Vegeta and having Goku have to go Super Saiyan. So I would say by quite a large margin. By quite a large margin. So that leaves some interesting possibilities if his father was still a relevant character to this day. You know. It's interesting. That's an interesting observation because that does leave the realm of possibility. I'd say the best thing I like for Super, in my opinion, is the Black arc. I agree. It's my favorite arc as well. It has flaws, but I like how they tried to create. Oh, I completely agree. Goku Black might be the shiniest moment in Super currently, in the anime specifically, because he did have that lore. He did have that swag that we haven't seen in a long time. We appealed to him emotionally. We looked at him as a sinister, vile threat. That's what Goku needed. That's what Vegeta needed to push themselves. And those amps made more sense because this guy was so sinister that Goku was pushed to his limits. So was Vegeta. And there were some golden moments there as well. For Goku Black, he has some cold moments. He has some very cold moments. That's what we need more of. Characters like that. The antithesis of Goku and Vegeta. That's what we need. So I do think that was a bright moment in Dragon Ball Super. Most definitely. So creates this sense of threat, this sense of risk. Those guys that can do that. I think it would be nice if they gave more wins to other characters like Vegeta. Absolutely agree. Not just small moments where he overpowers a villain. I agree. Give them a moment to shine, man. They really should do that. It's all about Goku these days. You think Six has his own orbit? Yeah, it's Six, and they'd be shitting on him, man. That's crazy. Even in Seth's fucking streams too. Shout out to Six though, man. Shout out to Six. Who else has been written with someone going after Goku's family and successfully killing them with still being around? Exactly. It was a very good plot. They set it up perfectly. It was a very well done plot. I liked how they pushed Goku. That moment where he powered up and he said, "You're going to pay for what you did. You shouldn't have told me that." That was fucking goated. It's one of the greatest moments, I would argue, in Dragon Ball history. And why? Because of Goku Black. It forced Goku to embrace his Saiyan ferociousness, his tenacity, to let that loose. And only someone like that's as vile as Goku Black can push him to that extent. That's why Goku Black was great. That's why Frieza was great when he killed his friend in front of his eyes and not on Namek. It pushed Goku to that level. Jiren, trying to threaten his friends, pushed him to that limit. Pushed him to this extent. And the crazy thing about Goku Black is that he actually did it. Fucking killed Chi-Chi, killed Gotenks. He's a fucking a G, as far as villains are concerned. So there's some accolades that can be put on, the feathers that can be put on his cap. So, all right, folks, I think that'll be all unless someone donates. These were great questions. You guys are all goated for the donations once again. Some final announcements. Working on some Dragon Ball content, original content. Hopefully in the next 7 to 14 days, the first one is released. I'm planning on doing a call-in show next week. It's probable. I'm not saying it's for sure. I gotta talk to the squad about it and see if that's gonna happen. But yeah, so some things in the works here. Trying to work around all the other personal ventures that we're all dealing with. Like education, stuff like that. But thanks for coming in, folks. Hit the like button if you haven't already. Gets us up in the algorithm. So last time I'll let you guys know. Hit the likes button. Get more likes, the more the chance of the algorithm pushing us up, the army growing. This was the goated stream. Thanks for again all the donations. It'll all go back to the channel anyway. And ask pre-live questions before, folks, and I'll answer them in depth like I did here with the ones that were asked. So shout out to you guys for the questions, and I'll catch you in the next one, folks. So this is Jay signing out. Peace out, folks.